Welcome, brave souls, to Mississippi, a land of sprawling rivers, moss-draped oaks, and plantations whose beauty conceals centuries of tragedy. Beneath the stately facades and manicured gardens lie stories of pain, betrayal, and sorrow. Some of these plantations are not just haunted by memories, they are home to restless souls that have never found peace. Plantations are meant to preserve history, yet in Mississippi, many hold lingering spirits. Visitors report shadowy figures wandering the halls, whispers carried by the wind, and cold drafts that appear suddenly in empty rooms. Some claim to see lights flicker without power, objects move on their own, or hear phantom footsteps pacing through long-abandoned corridors. Tonight, we explore 25 haunted plantations in Mississippi with restless souls, from grand historic homes to forgotten estates, each with stories of ghostly activity, tragic deaths, and spectral encounters. Some hauntings are well documented, others whispered in local lore, but all share one terrifying truth. In these plantations, the past never sleeps. Keep your lantern close, your senses sharp, and your courage steady. Because tonight, the spirits of Mississippi's haunted plantations are watching. Dunlop Plantation in Natchez, Mississippi, is a striking example of antebellum grandeur, with its white columns, expansive lawns, and elegant architecture. Built in the mid-19th century, the mansion has long been celebrated for its beauty and historical significance, drawing visitors eager to explore its period furnishings, ornate parlors, and sweeping ballrooms. Yet beneath the elegance and charm lies a darker history, a past marked by the lives of enslaved workers and the complex social dynamics of the era. Over the years, Dunlop has gained a reputation for being haunted, with reports of ghostly figures moving through hallways, phantom music drifting from empty rooms, and shadowy presences appearing in the grand ballrooms. Visitors often describe experiences that suggest the spirits of both former residents and enslaved individuals continue to linger within the plantation's walls, carrying echoes of lives once lived and emotions long unresolved. Walking through Dunleath's long corridors, guests frequently report an uncanny feeling of being watched. The hallways, adorned with period artwork and polished wood floors, sometimes seem to shift in subtle ways, with shadows appearing along the edges of vision. Many have described glimpsing figures in the distant shapes that vanish when approached, as though retreating into the walls themselves. Some witnesses believe these apparitions are former residents, elegantly dressed, moving through the home as they did in life, while others feel a more somber presence, perhaps connected to the enslaved workers who once labored within the same space. Phantom music is another commonly reported phenomenon at Dunlop Plantation. From the parlor rooms, visitors have heard the soft strains of a piano playing melodies that are never actually heard when a musician is present. The music can be light and haunting, sometimes distant and ethereal, seeming to drift along the corridors or echo faintly through the walls. Some have reported hearing the clink of glasses or the murmur of conversation, as if a gathering were taking place in a room now empty. These auditory experiences create the impression that the plantation's history is replaying itself in spectral form, with echoes of elegance and grief intertwined. The grand ballrooms of Dunlop are particularly noted for strange occurrences. Shadowy forms have been reported gliding across the polished floors, sometimes resembling figures in period attire, dancing or observing from the sidelines. Witnesses often describe a sensation of sudden chill as they step into these rooms, even on warm days, accompanied by a subtle pressure, as if invisible presences are nearby. Some have felt the sensation of being gently brushed or the faint movement of air that seems out of place. Adding to the eerie atmosphere, these experiences suggest that the ballrooms, once the site of lavish gatherings, still retain the energy of past events, frozen in time yet subtly active. Visual phenomena extend beyond fleeting shadows. Visitors have reported seeing figures standing at the tops of staircases, gazing out of windows, or moving along the porches that overlook the gardens. These figures often appear indistinct, blurred at the edges, and vanish when looked at directly. Some guests have even described seeing figures of enslaved individuals performing tasks, carrying items, or moving along service areas. their movements slow and purposeful, as if continuing their work long after life has ended. These experiences provide a chilling reminder of the complex and often tragic history that permeates the plantation. Cold spots are another frequent occurrence throughout Dunloth. Areas near staircases, hallways, and ballrooms can suddenly become noticeably colder, leaving visitors shivering despite warm temperatures elsewhere in the house. These chilling drafts are often accompanied by other unexplained phenomena, such as phantom footsteps, rustling fabrics, or the sound of doors opening and closing on their own. Some have reported seeing lights flicker or objects shift slightly, as if responding to unseen hands or energies. These subtle disruptions reinforce the idea that the plantation is a space where the past continues to intersect with the present. Many visitors recount a mix of emotions when exploring Dunloth. Awe and admiration for the architectural beauty are often tempered by a sense of unease or melancholy, particularly when hearing sounds or seeing shadows that cannot be explained. The plantation's history, both elegant and tragic, seems to permeate every corner, from the finely decorated parlors to the service areas once occupied by enslaved workers. Guests frequently remark on the emotional weight of the space, describing a lingering sadness, the sensation of being observed, or an inexplicable tension that intensifies in certain rooms. Environmental factors often seem to amplify the haunting. The rustling of trees in the surrounding gardens can sound like whispers or footsteps, while distant animal sounds echo through the property in ways that feel almost intentional. The interplay of sunlight and shadow across the plantation's porches and lawns can create fleeting shapes or illusions, making it difficult to separate natural phenomena from supernatural experiences. These environmental cues, combined with the mansion's history and reported apparitions, contribute to the enduring sense that Dunloth Plantation is alive with residual energy. Personal accounts of encounters at Dunloth are vivid and often unsettling. One visitor reported seeing a figure in a long dress standing near a window, fading slowly as they approached, while hearing the faint sound of piano music in an adjacent room. Another described feeling a cold draft pass across their neck as they walked through a hallway, accompanied by the faint murmur of voices from nowhere in particular. Others have witnessed shadowy figures moving across the grand ballroom floor, disappearing when attention is focused on them. These experiences leave lasting impressions, creating a sense that the plantation is inhabited by memories, spirits, and echoes of lives once intertwined with its history. Even today, Dunloth Plantation remains a place where history and the supernatural seem inseparable. Visitors leave with a mixture of wonder and unease, remembering the elegance of the architecture, the grandeur of the ballrooms, and the presence of ghostly figures, phantom music, and cold drafts that linger long after they have departed. The plantation's spirits of former residents and enslaved workers alike continue to inhabit the hallways, parlors, and ballrooms, ensuring that the story of Dunloth, both beautiful and tragic, is never truly forgotten. Longwood Plantation in Natchez, Mississippi, stands as one of the most striking and mysterious architectural relics of the antebellum South. Its octagonal design, capped with a vast onion-shaped dome, gives it an appearance unlike any other plantation home in the region. Conceived in the 1860s by Dr. Hollenut, a wealthy cotton planter, Longwood was intended to be a masterpiece of luxury and innovation, yet fate intervened. When the Civil War broke out, construction was abruptly halted. The northern craftsmen fled back home, leaving only the basement completed. What remains today is a haunting blend of grandeur and decay, a mansion frozen in time, surrounded by whispers of the workers who never finished their dream. Visitors who step into Longwood often describe a sensation of stepping not just into history, but into another world entirely. The air inside feels dense, heavy with age and memory. The unfinished upper levels, their skeletal wooden beams still exposed, radiate an atmosphere that is both awe-inspiring and deeply unsettling. Guides and guests alike have reported strange occurrences throughout the house, echoing footsteps when no one is present, flickering lights appearing in the empty dome, and distant murmurs that seem to drift through the still air. Some believe these are the lingering spirits of the craftsmen who died during the construction, their presence bound to the home they never completed. The legend of Longwood's haunting begins with the workers who toiled endlessly on the mansion's framework. Many came from the north, bringing with them materials, tools, and skill, only to find themselves caught in the rising tension of a nation divided by war. Some perished from disease during the harsh Mississippi summers, while others reportedly died in accidents as the heavy structure was being raised. When the war erupted, construction ceased overnight, and the unfinished upper floors became a silent grave to the ambitions that once filled the site. Locals say that ever since, the workers' spirits have never truly left. Those who have toured the mansion often speak of eerie lights flickering in the upper stories. Despite the absence of power, faint glows have been seen drifting behind boarded windows or moving slowly along unfinished corridors. At night, caretakers have reported strange illuminations shining from the dome itself, as though lanterns were still being carried by unseen hands. Photographs taken inside the house have captured orbs and shadowy shapes, particularly near the staircases leading to the upper floors. Many believe these lights are manifestations of the lost laborers, continuing their work by ghostly glow, trying to bring completion to a dream that was never fulfilled. Whispers and voices have also been heard throughout Longwood's echoing halls. Visitors exploring the lower levels have reported faint sounds of hammering, the creak of wooden scaffolding, or the murmur of conversation in empty rooms. Some claim to hear the faint hum of music, perhaps from a time when the Nuts entertained guests before tragedy struck. One recurring account describes a deep male voice, faint but distinct, calling out as if giving instructions or commands. Others have described the eerie sound of sighing or distant moans, emanating from the upper floors where no one dares to linger for long. Perhaps the most chilling encounters are the sightings of shadowy figures. Many visitors claim to have seen dark shapes moving along the staircases or vanishing into the walls. These apparitions are often described as tall, indistinct silhouettes, neither clearly male nor female, who seem to drift rather than walk. Others describe figures watching silently from corners or upper balconies, their presence heavy and unmoving, as if observing intruders in what remains their eternal workplace. The basement, which was the only completed portion of Longwood before construction halted, is said to hold the strongest spiritual energy. Here, the Nutt family lived while the war raged, surrounded by half-finished grandeur and the sounds of a home that would never be completed. Cold drafts sweep through the rooms, and some visitors describe feeling sudden chills or pressure, as though unseen figures move past them. Others have reported the sensation of being followed as they move from one room to another, accompanied by faint footsteps that stop when they turn around. Longwood's haunting extends beyond its walls. At night, passers-by have claimed to see figures standing in the windows or walking near the property's perimeter. Sometimes, faint lights appear in the surrounding gardens, floating briefly before vanishing into the trees. Locals speak of hearing distant hammering or the rhythmic sound of sawing on still nights, echoing faintly across the fields. These reports, stretching back decades, reinforce the belief that the mansion's unfinished state has trapped more than just physical work. It has captured the very energy of those who once labored there. Despite its eerie reputation, Longwood remains a place of fascination and beauty. Its unfinished upper levels, with exposed beams and skeletal staircases, evoke both the ambition of its creator and the weight of its history. Visitors often describe a feeling of melancholy, as though the mansion itself mourns what it could have been, standing beneath the dome, surrounded by silence and shadows. It's easy to imagine the sound of hammers striking, men shouting to one another, and lanterns swinging in the gloom. The line between past and present seems to blur, and one can almost sense the restless spirits still striving to finish what was begun more than a century ago. Some historians suggest that the paranormal phenomena at Longwood may be tied not only to the workers but also to the Nutt family themselves. Dr. Hallenut never saw his vision completed. He died before the war ended, leaving behind his wife and children to inhabit the mansion's incomplete basement. His wife, Julia, reportedly spent the rest of her life within those walls, surrounded by reminders of loss and unrealized dreams. Visitors sometimes report feeling a sorrowful presence, distinct from the laborer's restless energy or quiet, mournful awareness that seems to emanate from the rooms once occupied by the family. Even in daylight, the aura of Longwood is unmistakable. The sunlight pouring through the dome casts strange, angular shadows across the unfinished floors, highlighting the contrast between grandeur and decay. The silence inside feels alive, filled with faint echoes and unspoken memories. Every creak of the wooden structure, every soft gust of air, carries with it the suggestion of unseen movement. Longwood Plantation remains one of Natchez' most captivating landmarks, a testament to human ambition, interrupted by history and preserved in spectral stillness. Whether one believes in ghosts or not, the mansion's atmosphere is undeniably haunting. Visitors leave speaking of strange lights, phantom voices, and shadowy figures that seem to vanish into the walls. The spirits of Longwood, it seems, are still at work, endlessly building a home that time itself refused to complete. Magnolia Hall in Natchez, Mississippi, stands as a monument to the grandeur of the old South End antebellum mansion, with towering white columns, intricate ironwork, and a grace that time has not dimmed yet. Beneath its polished beauty lies an atmosphere that many describe as deeply unsettling. Built in the 1850s by Thomas Henderson, a wealthy cotton broker, Magnolia Hall has weathered the Civil War, the slow decline of the plantation era, and generations of families passing through its doors. But not everyone, it seems, has truly left. Visitors today often speak of an eerie quietness that fills the house when the last tour group leaves and the late afternoon light fades across the floorboards. It's in those silent moments that the mansion seems to breathe again its long memory, whispering through the corridors, replaying echoes of a past that refuses to rest. Some who enter say they can almost feel the weight of eyes upon them, as though unseen residents still linger, watching from behind the draped windows. The most frequently seen apparitions are those of elegant women dressed in flowing antebellum gowns. They appear briefly at the top of the grand staircase, or glide silently across the polished floors, before vanishing near the parlors. A guide once reported seeing a young woman in a white dress standing by the mirror in the drawing room, her reflection visible but her figure absent when he turned around. Moments later, a faint laugh echoed through the empty hall, a sound so distinct and light it could not have come from the settling of the house. Others describe sudden cold drafts sweeping through the hallways, particularly near the staircase and upstairs bedrooms. These bursts of chill air appear even on the hottest Mississippi days, vanishing as quickly as they come. Guests have also reported the scent of rosewater perfume drifting through the air, an aroma linked to one of the home's past residents, a woman said to have died tragically young after the war. Her presence, many believe, still lingers in the spaces she once cherished, unable to move on from a life interrupted too soon. During restoration efforts in the mid-20th century, workers claimed that tools would disappear overnight or be found neatly arranged in different rooms. One man recalled hearing footsteps in the attic, followed by the sound of soft humming, though he was alone in the house. When he went to investigate, he found nothing but a stillness that pressed against his chest, a silence so deep it made him feel as if the house itself were holding its breath. Tour guides often mention how the mansion's atmosphere changes depending on the hour. In daylight, Magnolia Hall feels regal and welcoming, its chandeliers casting warm light over portraits and antique furniture. But after dark, the same rooms take on a different tone. Shadows stretch long and heavy across the walls, and faint whispers seem to echo from corners that were silent just moments before. It's said that if one listens closely, distant piano music can sometimes be heard, a melody that fades before you can identify the song. Some believe it's the phantom echo of a party long past, when Magnolia Hall was alive with laughter and light. The ballroom, once the pride of the house, is especially known for unexplained activity. Visitors have reported seeing fleeting silhouettes reflected in the glass panes, as though dancers from another century continue their waltz through eternity. Others describe hearing the rustle of silk skirts brushing the floor and the rhythmic creak of old floorboards beneath invisible footsteps. One evening, a caretaker closing up for the night swore he saw a pair of candle flames flickering near the window, though every candle in the room had been unlit for years. Even the surrounding grounds carry an air of mystery. Beneath the magnolia trees that gave the mansion its name, people have felt sudden cold spots and caught glimpses of movement in their peripheral vision. Some claim to see shadowy figures wandering near the garden paths, fading into the mist that rises from the nearby riverbank. Local legends suggest these spirits may be former servants and enslaved workers, their energy imprinted upon the land after years of toil and heartbreak. While skeptics dismiss these tales as superstition, those who have spent time within Magnolia Hall often leave with stories that defy easy explanation. Cameras malfunction, recordings capture faint voices, and visitors experience moments of deep, inexplicable melancholy. Paranormal investigators who have explored the mansion report fluctuating electromagnetic readings and sudden temperature drops concentrated near the staircase and ballroom. One investigator described feeling a gentle touch on her shoulder as she stood near the parlor mirror, followed by the faintest whisper of laughter before the room fell silent again. Magnolia Hall has become more than just a historic site. It is a bridge between past and present, where history breathes and echoes persist. Whether one believes in ghosts or not, the house radiates an energy that feels undeniably alive. Perhaps it is the emotional residue of those who lived and loved their joys, sorrows, and memories etched into the walls themselves. Or perhaps, as many visitors claim, the residents of Magnolia Hall simply never left, continuing to drift through their beloved home, keeping silent watch as time moves on without them. In the quiet glow of evening, when the magnolia blossoms release their fragrance and the air grows still, some say you can feel it, the shiver of unseen movement, the echo of laughter long faded. And for those who walk its halls in that fleeting twilight, Magnolia Hall remains not just a relic of history, but a place where the veil between the living and the dead feels dangerously, beautifully thin. Melrose Plantation in Natchez, Mississippi, stands as one of the most striking examples of antebellum architecture in the Deep South. Its towering white columns, sweeping verandas, and lush gardens seem almost frozen in time. To the casual visitor, it's a symbol of a bygone era, preserved with care and grace. But those who linger after dark tell of a different Melrose one, where the silence hums with unseen movement, where shadows seem to breathe, and where the past refuses to rest quietly. Built in the 1840s by John T. McMurrin, a wealthy lawyer and planter, Melrose was more than a family home. It was a world unto itself, with sprawling grounds, slave quarters, and stables that once bustled with life. The mansion's walls absorbed decades of triumph, tragedy, and hardship. And today, many believe that those emotions, joy, grief, and suffering, have left their mark in ways that defy logic. Visitors touring the plantation during the day often speak of an inexplicable chill that settles over them as they walk through certain rooms. The air grows heavy in the upstairs hallway, where faint footsteps are said to echo against the polished wooden floors. These sounds are often described as deliberate but soft, as if someone were pacing slowly just out of sight. Yet when people turn toward the sound, there's nothing there, only an empty corridor stretching toward rooms that still hold the furniture and belongings of lives long gone. One of the mansion's guides once recalled a morning when she unlocked the house and found one of the parlor chairs pulled several feet away from the table. Thinking she had forgotten to replace it after a tour, she moved it back only to return moments later and find it moved again. The incident repeated twice more before she quietly left the room. Since then, others have reported seeing furniture subtly shift, curtains sway without a breeze, and delicate porcelain figurines tremble as though disturbed by invisible hands. At night, the atmosphere becomes heavier. Those who have been inside after dark describe a presence that feels watchful, yet not entirely malevolent. In the stillness, faint whispers drift through the rooms, soft and indistinct, like conversations carried on another frequency. Some claim to have heard their names called in voices they didn't recognize. Others report catching glimpses of figures reflected in the tall windows, shadowy outlines that vanish when approached. The gardens of Melrose are no less haunted, beneath the canopy of ancient oak trees. Visitors say they've seen fleeting figures moving among the hedges, their forms illuminated by moonlight, before dissolving into the darkness. One evening, a caretaker walking near the rose garden spotted what he thought was a woman in a long dress standing by the fountain. When he called out, she turned toward him, but her face was indistinct, blurred, like an image in waterland. Then she was gone. Moments later, the soft rustle of skirts swept past him, though no one was there. Locals say that the spirits who haunt Melrose are not only the former residents, but also the enslaved workers who lived and labored on the property. Their quarters still stand near the edge of the grounds, simple wooden structures that contrast sharply with the mansion-esque grandeur. Visitors exploring these cabins often report feeling a sudden heaviness in the air, a sorrow that seems to linger in the silence. Some have heard faint singing drifting from the empty rooms, the echo of work songs once sung to endure long days of toil. Paranormal investigators who have studied Melrose describe it as one of the most active sites in Natchez. Recordings taken in the house often capture soft, disembodied voices, and temperature fluctuations are common in rooms that should be still. One team reported seeing a dark shape glide across the stairwell during an overnight session, followed by the faint creaking of floorboards as though someone were descending the stairs. Even the grand dining room carries its own mysteries. The heavy chandelier above the table has been seen swaying gently when the air is completely still. It's said that during the Civil War, the family's matriarch waited in that room for news of her husband, who never returned. Some believe her spirit still waits, bound to the house by grief too deep to fade. One of the most chilling encounters occurred when a photographer was granted permission to take pictures of the mansion at dusk. Those who work at Melrose have come to accept the hauntings as part of its character. They speak of doors that open and close on their own, of chandeliers that flicker as if acknowledging a passing presence, and of rooms that seem to breathe with quiet energy. Even skeptics find it difficult to dismiss the feeling that they are being observed by something unseen. Perhaps it is not so surprising that Melrose feels alive with spirits. The plantation has witnessed generations of love, loss, and struggle. The people who lived and died there poured their emotions into its walls and soil. For them, Melrose may be more than a memory, may still be home. Today, as the sun sets behind the oaks and the air cools, the plantation takes on an otherworldly glow. The windows shimmer with reflections that sometimes seem to move on their own, and the distant murmur of voices drifts across the garden paths. Those who pause and listen may hear the echo of footsteps on old wooden floors or the soft sigh of history itself, reminding all who visit that, at Melrose Plantation, the past is never truly gone, it's only waiting in the shadows. Stanton Hall in Natchez, Mississippi, stands as one of the most opulent antebellum mansions in the South. A sprawling Greek Revival estate of marble fireplaces, sweeping staircases, and glittering chandeliers that once symbolized the height of Southern grandeur. But behind its elegance lies an undercurrent of sorrow, mystery, and lingering presences that many visitors believe are far more than echoes of the past. Those who walk its halls often describe the sensation of being watched, of cold air brushing against their skin, and of unseen hands moving objects ever so slightly. Signs. They say that Stanton Hall's former residents and servants never truly left. Built in the 1850s by Dr. Frederick Stanton, a wealthy cotton broker, the mansion was intended as a statement of luxury and permanence. Its construction drew artisans and laborers from across the region, and no expense was spared in its design. Yet tragedy shadowed its creation. Dr. Stanton died before he could fully enjoy his dream home, leaving his widow and children to maintain the vast property through the chaos of the Civil War and beyond. Over the decades that followed, the house changed hands, survived the decline of the Southern plantation economy, and eventually became a preserved historical site. But through all that time, those who have entered its doors tell of a presence that never faded, a quiet awareness that something, or someone, still lingers. Tour guides often recount how visitors feel sudden drops in temperature while standing in the grand entryway. Even on humid Mississippi afternoons, the air can turn icy, clinging to the skin like invisible mist. Some say the coldness comes just before faint footsteps echo through the marble hall, slow, deliberate, and unmistakably human. Yet when the sound is investigated, no one is there. The parlors, once filled with music and conversation, are said to be especially active. Guests walking through these rooms have reported seeing faint reflections in the tall mirrors, figures dressed in old-fashioned attire, appearing for a moment before vanishing. In one particularly well-known account, a visitor stopped to admire the crystal chandelier, only to notice the reflection of a woman standing behind her in the glass. The woman's image was clear, dark hair, pale face, and a gown of another century. When the visitor turned around, the room was empty. The bedrooms of Stanton Hall carry their own weight of mystery. Many report a feeling of heaviness as soon as they enter, the sense that the air itself is thicker, charged with something unseen. In one of the upstairs chambers, a faint perfume sometimes drifts through the air, sweet and floral, though no source can be found. Some believe it belongs to Dr. Stanton's wife, who reportedly spent much of her life tending to the home and grieving her husband's untimely death. Visitors who stay in the room too long often describe the sensation of being watched from the corner, as though an invisible presence is quietly observing. Several caretakers over the years have shared their own encounters. One recounted walking through the dining room late one evening to ensure the lights were off, only to hear the faint clinking of silverware. Thinking another worker had returned, he called out, but no answer came. Instead, he noticed that one of the chairs at the long table had been pulled slightly away, as though someone had just risen from it. When he stepped closer, a cold breeze brushed his face, and the faint scent of pipe smoke filled the air. In the grand staircase, said to be one of the most haunted parts of the house, guests have described seeing fleeting shadows move up or down the steps. One woman claimed she felt a sudden tug at her skirt while descending. Startled, she turned to see a small figure at her side, a boy, pale and translucent, watching her silently before fading away. There are stories that one of the Stanton children died young, and many believe this apparition is his lingering spirit, wandering the home that once filled his days with laughter. The mansion's servants' quarters and basement corridors also hold their share of strange activity. These spaces, where enslaved workers once lived and labored, exude a different kind of energy, quiet, mournful, and heavy with memory. Visitors have heard faint whispers echoing through the stone halls, the murmured cadence of prayers or soft conversation. On several occasions, disembodied footsteps have been heard crossing the floors above, though the building was locked and empty. Paranormal investigators who have visited Stanton Hall often leave with unexplained evidence. Temperature sensors drop suddenly in specific areas, and audio recorders have captured soft voices responding to questions. In one recording, a faint female voice is heard whispering the word home. Another investigator reported a light flickering rapidly whenever questions about the Stanton family were asked, as though an unseen presence were attempting to communicate. Even the gardens surrounding the mansion seemed touched by unseen forces. At dusk, when the last light fades through the magnolia trees, people walking the grounds have reported glimpsing white shapes gliding among the hedges, figures that disappear when approached. One man visiting during a photography session claimed to see a woman standing by the iron gate. She appeared solid at first, dressed in period clothing, but as he lifted his camera, she vanished completely. Inside, the atmosphere shifts with the time of day. During daylight tours, the house feels like a museum, elegant still and perfectly preserved. But after dark, it seems to breathe. The air grows cool, shadows stretch across the walls, and the chandeliers occasionally sway without a breeze. Those who have locked up the building at night speak of hearing faint piano music drifting from the parlors, soft melancholic notes from an instrument long untouched. Not all encounters are frightening. Some visitors describe the spirits as calm, even protective, as though the former residents are simply watching over their beloved home. Yet others sense deep sorrow in the air, a lingering echo of loss and longing that refuses to fade. Perhaps the ghosts of Stanton Hall are bound by emotion, the same devotion that built the mansion and the same heartbreak that time could not erase. Even skeptics who enter Stanton Hall leave with uneasy impressions. The feeling of being followed by invisible eyes is almost universal. Doors sometimes close softly behind guests, and lights flicker as if acknowledging their presence. It is as though the mansion itself remembers and reacts. Today, Stanton Hall remains a jewel of Natchez, admired for its beauty and history. But beneath the marble floors and gilded mirrors, its spirit endures in more ways than one. The laughter of parties long gone, the whispers of servants in the night, and the watchful gaze of unseen eyes all linger, giving life to the belief that the past here is not merely remembered, it's still alive. In the quiet halls of Stanton Hall, time stands still, and the veil between worlds remains forever thin. Rosswood Plantation, nestled among the ancient oaks and rolling hills of Natchez, Mississippi, is a mansion that seems frozen in time. Its towering columns, wide verandas, and weathered brick walls stand as a monument to a bygone era, one filled with wealth, elegance, and heartbreak. But beneath its graceful facade lies something deeper. Those who have walked its halls after sunset tell of strange occurrences, shadowy figures pacing the corridors, voices whispering names from empty rooms, and mirrors that seem to reflect faces not belonging to the living. Built in the 1850s by Dr. Walter Ross and his wife, the plantation was intended as a grand family home, a place of beauty and prosperity. Yet, like so many of the South's grand estates, Rosswood's history was shaped by tragedy. The Civil War swept across Mississippi, leaving scars both physical and emotional. Soldiers were said to have passed through the property, and at one point, the house served as a makeshift hospital for the wounded. The walls absorbed the cries of pain and the whispers of dying men, and some say those sounds have never left. Over the years, visitors to Rosswood have reported a lingering stillness and eerie calm that settles over the mansion even on bright days. But when night falls, that stillness gives way to activity. Tour guides tell of footsteps echoing through the upper floors when no one is there, of doors that creak open on their own, and of cold air that sweeps through rooms without warning. The temperature drops suddenly, as though something unseen has entered. In the long central hallway, one of the most active areas of the house, people often feel a strong sense of being watched. Some claim to have seen the shadow of a tall man pacing back and forth, his outline visible even when the lights are dim. One former caretaker recounted walking through the corridor one evening when she heard her name called, clearly softly at first, then louder, as though from a distance. She turned toward the voice, but saw only darkness. Later, she checked the security cameras. The hallway was empty. The mirrors in Rosswood have earned their own reputation. There are stories of guests glancing into them and seeing unfamiliar faces reflected behind them, faces that vanish the moment they turn around. Some claim these are the spirits of soldiers who died in the house during its time as a hospital. Others believe they are the lingering impressions of those who once lived and labored there. The phenomenon occurs most often in the upstairs bedrooms, where faint traces of perfume or cigar smoke sometimes drift through the air. One of the most frequently mentioned apparitions is that of a woman in a long, flowing gown. Witnesses describe her as elegant and sorrowful, moving silently through the hallways. She is often seen near the grand staircase, her form faintly illuminated by moonlight filtering through the tall windows. Some believe she is the ghost of Mrs. Ross, still wandering the home she loved, unable to rest after losing so much during the war. Others think she might be one of the enslaved women who once served in the house, her spirit drawn to the place she could never truly leave. There are also accounts of ghostly voices calling out names, sometimes softly, other times sharp and urgent. Visitors have heard these disembodied sounds echoing through the empty rooms, as though the past is still trying to reach someone. One guest described hearing a man's voice whisper her name directly into her ear. When she turned, the air behind her was icy cold. The great parlor, once a place of music and social gatherings, is now one of the most unnerving spots after dark. People have reported faint piano music drifting through the room, even though the old instrument there has been silent for decades. Candles flicker in still air, and the sound of soft footsteps sometimes follows visitors as they cross the floor. In one chilling account, a paranormal investigator recorded an unexplained voice on his audio device. The voice, quiet but distinct, said, "I remember. Outside, the grounds surrounding Rosswood are just as haunted as the mansion itself. The live oaks cast long, twisting shadows over the earth, and the faint scent of magnolia hangs in the air. At night, some have seen lights flickering near the old cemetery behind the house, where generations of Ross family members are buried. Shadowy forms move among the gravestones, appearing and vanishing like smoke." One local claimed that, while driving past a property late one evening, he saw a figure standing by the gate's pale and still, dressed in 19th century clothing. When he slowed to look closer, the figure dissolved into the fog. Several visitors have spoken of experiencing sudden waves of emotion, sadness, fear, or inexplicable grief while standing in certain parts of the house. It is as if the air itself carries the weight of memories, replaying moments of sorrow again and again. Paranormal researchers believe that the trauma endured here, both during the war and throughout the plantation's long history, has imprinted itself onto the structure. Energy, they say, cannot be destroyed, lingers, replaying fragments of the past, like a record that never stops spinning. One chilling incident involved a group of photographers documenting the house for a preservation project. As they set up equipment in the main hallway, one of them snapped a photo toward the grand staircase. When the image was reviewed later, a faint figure appeared halfway up the stairs, translucent, dressed in old-fashioned attire, and gazing downward toward the camera. None of the photographers had seen anyone there at the time. The basement of Rosswood is perhaps the most unsettling part of all. Dark, damp, and filled with the echoes of the past, it is said to be where the heaviest energy resides. People have reported hearing chains rattling, though none are visible, and faint whispers that grow louder the longer one listens. A local historian once visited the space and described hearing what sounded like multiple voices chanting softly in the dark. He left abruptly and refused to return. Despite the stories, Rosswood remains one of Natchez' most beautiful landmarks, a preserved glimpse into the South's complex past. By day, it exudes a stately calm, but when twilight falls and the last rays of sunlight fade through its high windows, something awakens. The house seems to breathe, the faint creak of floorboards, the distant echo of a voice, the whisper of a name that shouldn't be known. All of it reminds visitors that the past at Rosswood is never truly gone. Those who leave the plantation often carry with them more than just photographs. They remember the sudden chill that touched their skin, the strange reflection that met their eyes, the voice that called from the darkness. And as they drive away, many glance back toward the great house, half expecting to see a figure standing in one of the windows, watching. Whether it is imagination or something beyond, no one can say. But every year, new visitors return with the same haunted stories, proof that at Rosswood Plantation, history still walks the halls. Oakland Plantation in Natchez, Mississippi, stands as one of the most haunting remnants of the Old South. Its grand white columns rise against the backdrop of ancient oaks draped in Spanish moss, casting long shadows over the land that once bustled with life and sorrow. Built in the early 1800s, Oakland was once a place of prosperity, its fields stretching toward the horizon and its halls filled with the voices of family, servants, and enslaved workers. Today, however, those voices linger only as echoes. Visitors who enter the house after dark say the air feels heavy as if the walls themselves remember every tragedy that took place within them. The plantation's history is steeped in both grandeur and grief. During its height, Oakland was a thriving estate, sustained by the labor of dozens of enslaved people whose stories were largely silenced. The family who owned the home was known for hosting lavish gatherings, with music, laughter, and candlelight spilling out into the night. Yet, as with many of Natchez's old mansions, time brought ruin, war, and loss. By the end of the Civil War, the plantation was scarred, its fields burned, its wealth gone, and its halls filled with the ghosts of memory. Those who visit Oakland Plantation today often describe a strange stillness upon entering. The house feels too quiet, as though the world outside fades away at the threshold. Guides and guests have reported hearing phantom footsteps echoing down the long wooden corridors. Sometimes the sound is faint, like a distant march. Other times it's sharp and distinct, as if someone invisible is walking right beside them. One caretaker, closing up for the night, once heard boots pacing the upstairs landing. When she called out, there was no response. The footsteps stopped abruptly, leaving behind only a deep, unnatural silence. Shadowy forms are said to appear throughout the mansion. Some visitors catch fleeting glimpses from the corners of their eyes, figures dressed in 19th century clothing, gliding silently past doorways or standing near the grand staircase. They vanish when approached, dissolving into the dim light as though never there. Others have seen the reflection of these shapes in old mirrors, only to turn and find the room empty. One of the most chilling reports comes from the parlor, where the family once entertained guests. Late at night, people have claimed to hear faint strains of piano music coming from nowhere, soft and melancholy. It drifts through the house like a memory, sometimes accompanied by the low murmur of voices, as if a long-forgotten party continues on in the afterlife. Paranormal investigators have recorded unexplained sounds in the room, whispers, distant laughter, and even the creak of chairs moving on their own. The upstairs bedrooms hold their own secrets. Many who enter the master suite describe an overwhelming sense of sadness, as though someone is mourning nearby. Some claim to feel a cold breeze pass over them, even when the windows are shut. Others have seen the faint outline of a woman sitting near the bed, her head bowed, her figure barely visible in the dark. She never looks up, and within seconds, she disappears. Locals believe this apparition could be the spirit of the lady of the house, still grieving losses that occurred long ago, perhaps a child, a husband, or the life she once knew. Downstairs, the kitchen area is another focal point of strange activity. Objects are said to move on their own, and visitors sometimes hear the faint clatter of dishes being washed, though no one is there. On quiet evenings, one might hear a woman humming softly, her voice tender but distant, fading in and out as though carried by an unseen wind. Those who have worked at Oakland for years speak of this hum with reverence, calling it the kitchen song, a ghostly reminder of the women who once labored endlessly to keep the household running. Outside, the plantation grounds are equally unsettling. The air is thick with humidity, and the moss-covered trees seem to hold whispers of their own. Near the family cemetery, guests have reported seeing lantern lights moving between the graves, though no living person is present. Some have even captured faint orbs of light on camera, hovering near the headstones before flickering out. Others have heard voices calling softly from the trees' names, spoken so faintly that they seem to come from the earth itself. Perhaps the most chilling location is the narrow hallway leading to the back of the house. Here, many guests feel as though someone is walking directly behind them, only to turn and find no one there. Cold drafts sweep through, and the faint scent of smoke sometimes fills the air, though no fire burns nearby. Some say the hallway is where enslaved workers once passed, carrying food and supplies, their presence now imprinted forever into the space they were once confined to. On particularly still nights, when the moonlight spills through the windows, witnesses claim the plantation seems to come alive. The soft creak of the floorboards mimics footsteps. Distant murmurs echo as though from unseen rooms. Some have heard the rhythmic sound of a rocking chair moving upstairs, though the furniture there remains untouched. Others describe seeing candles flickering in windows long after the house has been locked. A historian, who spent several nights documenting the house, once reported a strange experience. Around midnight, he heard whispers coming from the main hall, way distinct but unintelligible. As he listened closer, the whispers grew louder until he could make out a single word: leave. The next morning, his recording equipment revealed faint voices layered over his own breathing, one male and one female, repeating the same word in unison. The energy at Oakland Plantation seems neither malevolent nor peaceful. It exists in a kind of sorrowful tension, as if the house itself cannot let go of its past. The tragedies of war, loss, and bondage have left their mark, not only on the land but in the atmosphere. Visitors often describe feeling emotionally drained after leaving, as though the spirits of the place have shared their grief for just a moment. Even during the day, Oakland carries an aura of quiet melancholy. The sunlight filters through tall windows, but the shadows never quite leave. The laughter of tourists fades quickly in its halls, swallowed by the still air. And when night falls over Natchez, when the crickets fall silent and the wind rustles through the oaks, the whispers begin, again soft voices carried through time, telling stories of love, loss, and the lives that once filled the house. For those who come seeking ghosts, Oakland Plantation rarely disappoints. The phantom footsteps, the shadowy forms, the whispered names, they remind visitors that history here is more than a memory. It breathes, it watches, it waits. And in the quiet of night, when all seems calm, the spirits of Oakland rise again, walking the same worn floors they once knew, forever bound to the house that refuses to forget them. Choctaw Plantation in Natchez, Mississippi, stands as a haunting relic of the antebellum South. Its stately white facade and towering columns concealing centuries of sorrow and mystery. The house, surrounded by sprawling fields and ancient oaks, seems to hold its breath as dusk falls. Locals say that when the sun dips below the horizon and shadows stretch across the land, the past begins to stir. It is then that the spirits of Choctaw Plantation make their presence known, whispering through the halls, moving objects unseen, and gliding silently up and down its grand staircase. Built in the early 1800s, Choctaw Plantation was once a thriving estate, a symbol of wealth and Southern elegance. Yet, beneath that beauty lay pain and tragedy. The plantation bore witness to the hardships of those who toiled on its grounds, the weight of loss from wars and illness, and the grief of families who called it home. Over the years, its residents came and went, but some, it seems, never truly left. Today, visitors claim that the air within the house feels unnaturally heavy as if every wall remembers the voices, tears, and secrets of generations long gone. One of the most frequently reported phenomena occurs on the grand staircase at the heart of the mansion. Guests climbing the stairs often describe feeling a sudden chill that seems to wrap around them, even in the heat of summer. One visitor, while taking a late-night tour, claimed to see a woman in a long white gown gliding down the steps, her head slightly bowed. When the guide turned to ask if everyone was all right, the figure vanished before their eyes, leaving only a cold rush of air in her place. The parlor, once the site of lavish gatherings and candlelit dances, now holds a more somber energy. Visitors often hear faint strains of music drifting through the air, piano notes echoing softly, though the old instrument in the corner remains untouched. Some have reported hearing the shuffle of footsteps on the wooden floor, as if dancers from another time continue their waltz, unseen and eternal. Others say that mirrors in the room seem to shimmer faintly, reflecting movement that does not exist in the physical space. In one particularly chilling account, a caretaker, locking up the house for the night, noticed a candle flickering in the parlor, even though no one had been inside for hours. As she stepped closer, the light abruptly went out, leaving behind the faint scent of burnt wax. When she turned to leave, she caught sight of a shadow standing near the piano, a tall, dark silhouette that lingered just long enough for her to know she was not alone. Cold drafts are another common occurrence within the plantation's walls. They sweep through hallways and rooms without any apparent source, sometimes carrying a faint scent of old wood smoke or perfume. In one of the upstairs bedrooms, guests report a sudden drop in temperature that makes their breath visible in the air, even in the middle of August. Those who stay too long in that room often describe feeling a presence beside them, as if someone invisible is watching or waiting. The house's library, filled with old books and fading portraits, holds a particular reputation for unease. Visitors browsing the shelves have seen volumes shift slightly on their own or heard the faint sound of pages turning, though no one is nearby. One paranormal investigator who spent a night at Choctaw Plantation claimed that, as she sat quietly in the library, a book fell from the highest shelf with no explanation. When she picked it up, she found that it had opened to a page describing mourning customs from the 1800s. She left the room soon after. shaken by what she described as a suffocating sadness. Outside, the grounds surrounding Choctaw Plantation are no less haunted. The wide lawn, once filled with the laughter of children and the rhythm of daily labor, now feels eerily silent under the sprawling oak trees. Visitors sometimes see faint lights flickering between the branches' soft blue or amber glows that move slowly through the dark. Some believe these are the spirits of those who once lived and worked the land, still wandering beneath the moonlight. Others think the lights are remnants of lanterns once carried during the long nights of harvest and hardship. The most unnerving activity, however, takes place in the dining room. During guided tours, guests have witnessed utensils shifting across the table and chairs moving ever so slightly, as though invisible hands were preparing for a meal. More than one guide has reported setting the table only to return minutes later and find the silverware rearranged in perfect symmetry. A few brave souls who have dined there during evening events claim to have felt someone brush lightly past their shoulder, though no one else was close enough to touch them. On stormy nights, the plantation becomes even more alive with activity. As rain batters the roof and lightning illuminates the grounds, the lights within the house are said to flicker on their own, even when disconnected from modern power. Witnesses have described seeing the faint glow of candlelight in the upper windows, moving as if carried by unseen figures. When they investigate, the rooms are empty yet the air hums with energy, as though the building itself were breathing. Some historians believe the haunting of Choctaw Plantation stems from its turbulent past. Family records tell of tragic deaths, including illness that claimed several children in the same year, and an accident that took the life of one of the original owners. The combination of love, loss, and injustice has created an emotional residue that seems to linger in every room. Modern visitors who enter the house rarely leave untouched. Some describe an overwhelming sadness that washes over them the moment they step inside. Others feel an inexplicable sense of nostalgia, as if the spirits are welcoming them home. A few skeptics arrive, convinced that the stories are mere legend, but leave in silence after witnessing doors open by themselves or feeling an unseen hand graze their arm. The caretakers of Choctaw Plantation have grown used to these occurrences. They treat the spirits with respect, speaking softly in the halls and never staying after midnight. "You can feel them here," one caretaker once said, "not angry, not vengeful, just here, watching, remembering." Today, Choctaw Plantation stands not only as a piece of Southern history, but as a bridge between the living and the dead. Its walls hum with memories too strong to fade, and its rooms whisper with voices from another time. Whether one believes in ghosts or not, it's impossible to deny the feeling that something unseen lingers in the air, a watchful presence that moves through the house like a chill on the wind. When the sun sets and the last visitor leaves, Choctaw Plantation falls into a deep and eerie quiet. Yet, within that silence, the faint sound of footsteps continues to echo down the halls, and the old lights flicker, once more reminders that the past at Choctaw Plantation has never truly gone away. Rosalie Mansion in Natchez, Mississippi, rises above the bluff overlooking the Mississippi River, its stately columns and pale pink facade giving it an almost dreamlike appearance. But behind its beauty lies an unsettling atmosphere, one that has lingered for more than 2 centuries. Known as one of the most historically significant antebellum homes in the South, Rosalie is also regarded as one of the most haunted. Those who have walked its halls after dark speak of shadowy figures that drift between rooms, faint whispers that seem to call out names, and phantom music echoing faintly from nowhere. Built in 1823 by Peter Little, Rosalie was named after Fort Rosalie, the French outpost that once stood on the same land. For generations, it served as both a family home and a witness to history. The Civil War brought soldiers to its doors, and in later years, caretakers preserved its grandeur as a living museum. But long after the last owner passed away, the mansion seemed to retain an energy of its own though its former residents refused to leave the place they loved so deeply. Visitors stepping through Rosalie's grand entrance often remark on the immediate heaviness in the air. The polished wooden floors gleam under dim light, and portraits of long-departed family members seem to watch with silent eyes. Many describe the uneasy feeling that someone else is in the room with them, even when they're completely alone. Some report faint whispers drifting through the air, soft, indistinct voices that seem to murmur names or phrases in tones too quiet to identify. When they turn toward the sound, there's never anyone there. The grand staircase is the center of much of the mansion's paranormal activity. Guides and visitors alike have heard footsteps ascending the stairs late at night, the soft thud of shoes on wood echoing in the silence. The most chilling detail is that the sound always stops just before reaching the top landing, as if the unseen traveler never completes the climb. One former caretaker swore she heard the steps night after night during her shift, always beginning at midnight. She once called out, asking who was there, but the only answer was a faint rustle of fabric and a sudden cold gust that swept past her. Rosalie's grand parlor, where the Littles and their guests once gathered for evenings of music and conversation, is another hotspot for ghostly occurrences. Visitors claim to hear the faint sound of a piano playing, the notes soft and hesitant, like someone practicing in the distance. Yet the mansion's old piano, standing quietly in the corner, remains untouched. Sometimes, the music is accompanied by the faint sound of laughter or the swish of skirts across the floor, as though a long-ago party continues behind a veil of time. Tour guides have reported watching the chandeliers sway ever so slightly when there is no breeze. On one occasion, during a private after-hours tour, a guest gasped as one of the crystal pendants began to vibrate and emit a faint ringing tone. Within seconds, the air grew cold enough for their breath to fog. The guide quickly ended the tour, saying later that it felt like someone invisible had entered the room and was watching every move. In one of the upstairs bedrooms, believed to have belonged to one of the little daughters, there are reports of a young female spirit. Visitors often describe the feeling of being watched while standing near the bed or the vanity mirror. Some claim to have seen a faint reflection of a woman's face, smiling sadly, though no one else was in the room. Others describe hearing the soft sound of sobbing late at night, the kind of quiet weeping that seems to come from the corners of the walls themselves. One guest on a historical tour once stepped into that very room alone and heard what she described as the faint sound of a woman humming a lullaby. When she turned, the air behind her shimmered slightly, and she felt a chill pass through her shoulders. She ran out of the room, but the tune followed her faintly down the hallway before fading into silence. The mansion's connection to the Civil War adds another layer to its haunting. During the war, Union troops occupied Rosalie and used it as headquarters for General Ulysses S. Grant's forces. Some say the spirits of soldiers still linger on the property. Visitors exploring the grounds have reported seeing the faint outline of a man in uniform standing near the edge of the bluff, staring toward the river as though watching for something. When they approach, the figure vanishes, leaving behind only the scent of gunpowder or pipe smoke. The dining room is also known for strange happenings. Dishes and silverware sometimes clink faintly when no one is near. The chairs around the long table are occasionally found moved, as if someone had taken a seat during the night. A volunteer once described setting the table for a historical exhibit, only to return an hour later and find the napkins neatly folded into new shapes. It was like someone wanted to help, she said. Or maybe they were just reminding us they're still here. Many visitors also describe sudden drops in temperature in specific areas of the mansion, most often near the main staircase and in the upstairs hallway. Even in the sweltering Mississippi summer, guests report feeling cold drafts that send chills down their spines. Some say these icy gusts are accompanied by faint centroses, old wood polish, or sometimes a trace of smoke, as though from an extinguished candle. The mansion's docents, who spend long hours within its walls, have grown accustomed to the unexplainable. One guide recounts hearing her own name whispered behind her while locking the front door after closing. When she turned, no one was there. Another described the sound of soft footsteps crossing the foyer when she was completely alone in the building. She now greets the spirits every morning out of respect, saying, "Good day, Rosalie," before beginning her shift. On some nights, when the moonlight spills through the tall windows, people walking past the mansion claim to see silhouettes moving within. Faint candlelight seems to glow from the upstairs rooms, though the house is empty. Some have even reported hearing faint piano melodies drifting through the humid night air, carried out toward the river. Whether these occurrences are the echoes of memory or something more supernatural, few can deny the feeling of presence that fills Rosalie Mansion. It's as if time itself has folded here, and those who once loved the house are still tending to it, unwilling to let go. When visitors leave Rosalie, many do so with a strange mixture of awe and melancholy. They speak of the beauty of the mansion, but also of the weight that seems to cling to them, the sense that the spirits within have brushed against their world, if only for a moment. And perhaps, in that lingering whisper or the faint sound of unseen footsteps, the house is reminding all who enter that some stories never truly end, they just echo softly through time. Dunbar Plantation in Natchez, Mississippi, stands as one of the region's quietest and most mysterious estates. With its tall columns, broad verandas, and sprawling gardens, the mansion's beauty hides an air of deep melancholy. Though it once symbolized the wealth and grace of the Old South, today it is known for something far more unsettling: unexplained voices, cold drafts, and ghostly presences that seem to linger long after sunset. Visitors speak of children's laughter echoing through the gardens, phantom music drifting from the parlors, and shadowy figures seen moving silently behind the mansion's windows. The story of Dunbar Plantation begins in the early 1800s, when the estate was built by a wealthy cotton baron who wanted to create a home that reflected his family's prosperity. The house was grand, even by Natchez's standard tall ceilings, elaborate chandeliers, and wide, sunlit corridors that opened onto manicured lawns. For decades, the plantation was alive with laughter, parties, and the constant rhythm of daily life. But beneath that charm lay years of hardship and loss. Fires, illness, and war swept through Natchez, and with each generation, tragedy seemed to touch the house in some way. Locals say that Dunbar Plantation remembers every sorrow that ever crossed its threshold. The gardens, once filled with bright azaleas and singing birds, now carry a strange stillness. Visitors walking along the overgrown paths sometimes hear the faint sound of children laughing and running, always just ahead, never visible. Some claim to see fleeting glimpses of small figures darting between the hedges, the sound of their play rising for a few seconds before fading into silence. One visitor described hearing the thump of a ball bouncing across the path near the fountain. But when she looked down, nothing was there. Only the soft ripple of water disturbed by an unseen hand. The mansion itself feels caught in another time. Inside, the air carries the faint scent of old wood and lavender polish, mixed with something colder and undercurrent of dampness, like a room that's been sealed for years. Many who enter report an immediate drop in temperature, especially near the parlor and the grand staircase. Even during the humid Mississippi summer, visitors feel icy drafts sweeping across their skin. One paranormal investigator recorded a 20-degree drop in less than a minute while standing near a gilded mirror in the hallway. When he turned to look, he swore he saw a reflection that wasn't his own, a woman in period dress, gazing back before fading away. The parlor is where much of the activity seems to center. In the evenings, faint strains of music have been heard drifting through the room, though no instruments are present. Guests describe it as a piano melody, soft, deliberate, and tinged with sadness. At times, the sound is accompanied by the faint rustle of skirts or the echo of footsteps across the wooden floor. Tour guides say it's not unusual for candles to flicker wildly when the music starts, even in rooms with no open windows. On some nights, lights appear to shimmer faintly across the walls, as though a long-ago ballroom dance were playing itself out again in the shadows. Several witnesses claim to have seen shadowy figures standing in the corners of rooms or passing silently down the corridors. These apparitions are usually described as silhouettes, human in shape, but indistinct, like smoke caught in the light. One caretaker recalled seeing a tall man standing near the fireplace one evening while she was closing the house. His outline was clear, but his features were blurred. He vanished when she turned on her flashlight, leaving only the scent of tobacco smoke hanging in the air. The upper floors of the mansion are even more unnerving. Guests exploring the bedrooms have reported hearing faint whispering behind closed doors and the sound of fabric brushing across the floors. In one of the smaller guest rooms, cold spots appear regularly near an old rocking chair. Sometimes, the chair begins to sway gently on its own. A group of college students visiting the site on a ghost tour captured video footage showing the chair moving slightly without anyone touching it. The motion was slow and rhythmic, like someone unseen was sitting there, rocking softly to an unheard tune. One of the most chilling stories connected to Dunbar Plantation comes from a former housekeeper who worked there during the late 20th century. She described locking up the parlor one night and hearing the sound of giggling behind her. When she turned, she saw two small figures at the top of the stairs, children, dressed in old-fashioned clothes. They stood silently for a moment before vanishing completely. She refused to work in the house after dark again, saying she could still hear the children's laughter echoing through the empty hallways. The source of these hauntings remains unclear, though local historians point to the many lives touched by tragedy at Dunbar. Records indicate that several children of the original owners died young, victims of fever outbreaks that swept through the South in the 19th century. Others speculate that the ghostly music and cold drafts are remnants of the grand balls that once filled the households of happier times, replaying themselves over and over. Some paranormal researchers believe the energy of emotion, joy, sorrow, fear can linger long after life has ended, especially in places that held great meaning. Dunbar Plantation, they suggest, is one such place. The laughter of children, the faint melodies of a piano, and the whisper of unseen voices may not be ghosts in the traditional sense, but imprints, fragments of life left behind by those who loved and lost within these walls. Even outside the mansion, the atmosphere remains thick with mystery. At dusk, when the last sunlight fades behind the trees, the gardens grow strangely quiet. Those who linger too long often report feeling watched. Some describe seeing movement behind the upper windows, faces peering out, only to vanish when looked at directly. Others have felt sudden chills while walking past the old swing near the edge of the lawn, where a cold gust often sweeps by without any wind in the trees. Modern visitors, drawn by curiosity or fascination with the supernatural, leave Dunbar Plantation with a lingering sense of awe. Many say they can shake the feeling that the house is still alive, that it breathes and listens, keeping its secrets close. When they describe their experiences, their voices lower instinctively, as if afraid the house might hear. The stories surrounding Dunbar Plantation continue to grow, whispered from one visitor to the next, blending history and the unknown. Whether one believes in ghosts or not, it's hard to stand within those silent rooms and not feel something, an invisible presence, a shift in the air, the echo of lives long gone but not forgotten. And perhaps that is the truth of Dunbar's haunting. The laughter of children, the faint strains of music, the soft whisper of footsteps. These are not mere phantoms, but reminders. The past has not vanished from this place. It lingers quietly, waiting to be noticed, hidden in the cold drafts that sweep through the empty halls and the shadows that move when no one is looking. Whitehall Plantation in Natchez, Mississippi, is a place where history lingers like a low whisper through the halls. Its white columns and sweeping balconies still carry the elegance of its antebellum past. But beneath the beauty lies a heavy silence. Visitors often remark that the air around Whitehall feels charged as though time itself has folded over, allowing echoes of the past to bleed through. Many who enter this house describe strange sensations, the feeling of being watched, doors that open and close on their own, and fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures moving through candlelit rooms. Built in the early 1800s, Whitehall was once one of the grandest plantations in the Natchez region. Its owner, a prominent planter and businessman, spared no expense in its construction. He imported furniture from Europe, chandeliers from France, and hired artisans to decorate the ceilings with ornate plasterwork. From the outside, it appeared to be a house of wealth and refinement. But like many plantations of its era, that luxury was built upon the suffering of the enslaved men and women who worked the land and maintained the household. The beauty of Whitehall hid an undercurrent of pain, one that, according to many who visit today, still lingers in every room. Visitors often report that the haunting of Whitehall feels deeply emotional, less like random noise and more like the remnants of memory. One of the most common experiences occurs near the grand staircase. Guests say they've heard footsteps ascending slowly, as though someone in heavy boots were climbing toward the upper floors. The sounds stop abruptly at the landing, followed by a faint sigh, as if the invisible traveler has reached the end of an endless journey. Others have reported seeing a dark silhouette or a tall figure that seems to fade into the wall when approached. The drawing room is another place where activity seems to concentrate. During guided tours, several people have claimed to see the heavy double doors swing open on their own, sometimes gently, other times with sudden force. The staff often dismisses it as drafts caused by the old structure, but the timing feels uncanny. It tends to happen just as the guide begins speaking about the original owner's death during the Civil War, as if the past itself objects to being spoken aloud. One visitor described standing in that same room when the chandelier above her began to sway gently, though there was no breeze and no footsteps on the floor above. The crystals clinked softly against one another, catching the sunlight in strange ways like reflections of something unseen, moving just out of view. When she reached out to steady the fixture, a sudden chill ran up her arm, leaving her hand numb for several minutes afterward. The sense of unease extends into the back halls and servant quarters, where the presence feels heavier, more sorrowful. These areas, once used by enslaved workers, are said to be among the most active. Paranormal investigators who've explored Whitehall have recorded faint voices, hear soft murmurs, indistinct but rhythmic, as if people were still whispering instructions or singing work songs beneath their breath. Some visitors claim they've heard the clatter of dishes in the empty kitchen late at night, followed by the sound of a door creaking open and slamming shut with no one nearby. Many say the most haunting aspect of Whitehall is its silence, how it seems to absorb sound and then return it moments later in distorted form. A person can walk through the grand dining room, hear their own footsteps, and then, seconds later, hear the faint echo of those same steps coming back from a direction they didn't walk. Others report hearing distant cries, low and mournful, drifting through the house on quiet afternoons. On certain nights, the upper rooms are said to fill with the faint sounds of conversation, voices overlapping, laughter rising and falling, like a dinner party caught between worlds. One caretaker recounted entering one of these rooms after hearing the noise and finding the air so cold her breath was visible. The room was empty, the curtains still, but she said she could smell cigar smoke and perfume, as if the gathering had only just ended. Outside, the grounds carry their own quiet unease. The old oak trees that framed the house cast long shadows across the lawn, and visitors walking near them after sunset often feel sudden drops in temperature or sense movement at the edges of their vision. Some say they've seen lantern lights moving slowly through the small, flickering orbs that disappear when approached. Others have heard what they describe as the rhythmic creak of a wagon wheel turning somewhere in the distance. Even though no road remains there now, a few accounts describe encounters that feel more personal. One woman visiting from out of state reported hearing a child's voice calling softly from the upstairs hall. Thinking it was part of the tour, she followed the sound, only to find the corridor empty. As she turned to leave, she felt a tug on the hem of her coat, light but distinct. When she looked down, no one was there. The air smelled faintly of roses, a scent said to have been favored by the plantation's mistress generations ago. Researchers studying the hauntings at Whitehall suggest that the overlapping energies of grief, guilt, and tragedy may have imprinted themselves on the property. The plantation saw not only the horrors of slavery, but also the losses of war and disease. Letters found in the archives tell of the owner's wife dying young and their son never returning from battle. The enslaved workers who built the house and worked the fields lived under unbearable hardship, and their suffering left a mark that time alone could not erase. Even those skeptical of ghosts admit there's something different about Whitehall. It's as if the boundaries between past and present have thinned there, allowing fleeting moments from long ago to replay themselves. Lights flicker in empty rooms. Doors open to corridors that seem to breathe. The faint echo of life continues where life has long since ended. Visitors who leave the plantation often describe a lingering feeling, an invisible weight that follows them to their cars and fades only after they drive away. They say Whitehall feels alive, like it's listening. The wind through the magnolias sounds almost like a whisper, and the stillness of the halls feels too deliberate, too knowing. Whether the strange occurrences are echoes of restless spirits or simply the resonance of history itself, Whitehall Plantation stands as a reminder that the past never truly disappears. Beneath its grand facade, the house holds centuries of stories of joy and sorrow, of beauty and pain, and those who walk its corridors can still feel them, drifting like shadows through time. Windsor Plantation, in Natchez, Mississippi, is a place where the elegance of the antebellum South intersects with the unsettling weight of history. Its white columns and sprawling verandas give an impression of grandeur, but for those who spend time within its walls, there is a sense that the past has never truly left. Visitors frequently report cold spots in hallways, shadowy figures in long gowns, and objects moving seemingly on their own. Some even claim to see apparitions reflected in mirrors or windows, fleeting glimpses of people who vanished decades, or even centuries, ago. Built in the early 1800s, Windsor Plantation was a showcase of wealth and refinement. The original owner spared no expense, importing ornate furniture and hiring artisans to decorate ceilings with intricate plasterwork. The house was designed to impress, with long corridors, tall windows, and expansive rooms meant for entertaining. Yet behind the elegance lay the harsh realities of plantation life. Enslaved workers labored in the fields and the house itself, tending to daily chores under strict supervision. It is within this mixture of beauty and suffering that the stories of haunting at Windsor have their roots. Guests often describe an immediate change in atmosphere upon entering the plantation. The air can feel heavy, as if carrying centuries of whispered conversations and long-forgotten sorrow. Many who walk through the hallways report sudden drops in temperature, particularly in the rooms once occupied by the plantation's women. Cold drafts appear even on warm days, brushing against the skin in ways that cannot be explained by open windows or ventilation. Some have felt these chills intensify when they pause near mirrors or portraits, as though the house itself is drawing attention to certain spots. One of the most commonly reported phenomena occurs in the main hallway. Visitors speak of fleeting figures, dressed in long, flowing gowns, gliding silently past doors and vanishing before they can be followed. Some describe these apparitions as translucent, almost like smoke, while others appear more solid, with subtle facial features visible for a brief moment. A local historian recounted a night when she saw a figure standing at the top of the grand staircase, staring down before disappearing completely. She later learned that the figure resembled one of the plantation's original residents, a woman who had died tragically young. The parlor and dining rooms are often the sites of more active disturbances. Objects such as chairs, candlesticks, and even small pieces of furniture have been known to shift slightly on their own. Visitors have reported hearing the faint scraping of chairs across wooden floors, doors creaking open without any wind, and the soft clatter of tableware when no one is present. Some claim that these movements follow patterns, occurring at the same times of day or near specific pieces of furniture associated with the original family. Paranormal researchers who have investigated Windsor suggest that these events could be residual energy, echoes of past routines replaying themselves across time. Mirrors and windows in Windsor Plantations seem to serve as portals, capturing fleeting glimpses of the past. Guests have reported seeing reflections of people who aren't in the room, appearing briefly before fading away. A couple exploring the East Wing described catching a glimpse of a young woman adjusting her hair in a mirror, only for the reflection to vanish as they turned to investigate. Another visitor looking out a window at the gardens swore she saw a figure walking slowly along the veranda, dressed in the style of the 19th century, only for the space outside to remain empty when she glanced again. The upper floors of Windsor are said to be particularly active. Guests climbing the staircase often feel the air grow inexplicably cold and hear faint whispers echoing from the rooms above. Footsteps are sometimes heard pacing along the hall, matching the rhythm of someone walking deliberately back and forth. Many who explore these rooms report a feeling of being observed, as though invisible eyes are watching from the corners. One paranormal investigator captured temperature fluctuations exceeding 20 degrees in one hallway, accompanied by low-frequency sounds that could not be attributed to the house's structure. Outside, the grounds hold their own quiet mysteries. The gardens and walkways are surrounded by towering oaks and magnolias, their branches casting elongated shadows across the lawn. Visitors walking the grounds at dusk often feel sudden chills or perceive movement in their peripheral vision. Some claim to hear soft laughter, the sound of skirts brushing across grass, or footsteps pacing along paths that are otherwise empty. Lantern-like lights are occasionally reported floating among the trees, disappearing when approached, leaving only the echo of unseen activity. Stories of Windsor's hauntings often involve personal encounters that linger long after visitors leave. One woman described feeling a gentle tug on her sleeve while exploring the upstairs hall, followed by the unmistakable scent of rosetta fragrance, historically associated with the plantation's original mistress. Another visitor reported hearing a piano begin to play softly in the parlor, though no one was present and the instrument had been covered for decades. These subtle, yet persistent events create a sense that Windsor is a place where time does not fully move forward or backward, but instead holds moments suspended, waiting to be noticed. Historical records suggest that many of the hauntings may be tied to the plantation's tragic past. The original owners endured personal losses, and the lives of the enslaved people who worked the land were filled with hardship and sorrow. Letters and diaries from the period describe moments of both joy and grief, with celebrations, illness, and death interwoven into the daily rhythm of life at Windsor. Paranormal experts suggest that such strong emotional energy can imprint itself on a location, giving rise to the experiences reported by modern visitors. Even for skeptics, Windsor Plantation conveys a palpable sense of presence. Walking through its halls, one cannot help but feel the weight of history pressing close. The shadows, the cold drafts, the faint music and laughter, they all serve as reminders that the lives once lived within these walls continue to resonate. The plantation's haunting is not simply a matter of superstition. It is the lingering echo of those who walked the corridors before, a bridge between the past and present that refuses to be ignored. For those who visit Windsor Plantation, the experience leaves a lasting impression. Many describe the feeling of being in a house that listens, watches, and remembers. The grand rooms, the shadowy figures, and the unexplained phenomena create an atmosphere that is both beautiful and unsettling. It is a place where history is alive in a very real sense, and where the spirits of the past, both joyous and sorrowful, remain ever present, waiting for those willing to acknowledge them. Ravenwood Plantation, nestled in the historic city of Natchez, Mississippi, stands as a silent witness to centuries of human emotion, both tragic and fleeting. Its grand facade, with towering columns and sweeping porches, masks the weight of sorrow that permeates the property. Visitors often report a feeling of unease as soon as they step onto the grounds, as though the air itself carries whispers of the past. Shadowy figures have been seen gliding through the rooms, phantom footsteps echo along the hallways, and faint, disembodied laughter drifts through empty spaces. The plantation is not merely a house. It is a repository of memory, where the lives and losses of those who lived and labored there continue to echo. Built in the early 19th century, Ravenwood Plantation was intended as a symbol of wealth and refinement. The original owner spared no expense, decorating the interiors with imported furnishings, grand chandeliers, and intricate woodwork. The house was designed to impress visitors with its elegance and sophistication, while the surrounding fields produced crops that supported the lavish lifestyle within. Yet beneath the surface of this grandeur lay a darker truth. Enslaved people worked the fields and maintained the household under strict and often brutal conditions, and their suffering left an indelible mark upon the estate, one that some say is still visible to those sensitive to the supernatural. Many visitors report that the haunting presence at Ravenwood feels both active and emotional. In the main hallways, for instance, Footsteps are often heard when no one else is present. These are not the light, casual steps of a passerby, but deliberate, measured footfalls, as though someone is pacing in thought or following a routine ingrained long ago. Occasionally, these sounds are accompanied by a faint whisper, just on the edge of understanding, as if conversations from decades past are being replayed by unseen actors. Shadowy figures are commonly seen in the plantation's living areas. Guests have reported glimpsing tall forms in long gowns gliding past doorways, only to vanish when approached. These apparitions are described as ethereal, moving with a deliberate grace, often in areas associated with the plantation's family quarters. One visitor recalled seeing a figure descending the grand staircase in a flowing dress, her face obscured in shadow, before fading into the wall as if she had never existed. Others have noticed fleeting reflections in mirrors' faces, sometimes children, that disappear when looked at directly. The parlor and dining rooms of Ravenwood Plantation are particularly active. Chairs have been found slightly shifted, chandeliers sway without cause, and small objects occasionally move across tabletops. Some visitors report hearing the soft clatter of dishes and silverware, or the faint sounds of footsteps on wooden floors. While some may attribute these phenomena to structural settling or drafts, the timing of these occurrences often coincides with accounts of specific events from the plantation's past, giving them an air of purposeful presence. Laughter, one of the more unsettling aspects of Ravenwood's hauntings, has been reported in rooms long abandoned. Visitors describe hearing the high, clear tones of children's laughter echoing through hallways or rooms with no occupants. At times, this laughter is joined by whispers, seemingly in conversation, but impossible to decipher. Some say that this represents echoes of the lives once lived within the plantation, joyful moments preserved alongside sorrow. The upper floors are often described as the most chilling. Guests frequently report cold drafts that appear suddenly, regardless of the season, and a sense of being watched while navigating the long corridors. Footsteps on the staircases are a common experience, as if someone unseen is pacing or following. Paranormal researchers who have investigated the house have recorded temperature fluctuations, unexplained sounds, and shadowy forms caught on video, though always fleeting and elusive. Even the grounds of Ravenwood Plantation seem to carry a spectral energy. Large oaks and magnolias cast deep shadows across the lawns, and visitors walking after dusk report sudden drops in temperature and the sensation of movement at the periphery of their vision. Lantern-like lights have been observed, floating among the trees, and faint figures sometimes appear to walk along the pathways, disappearing when approached. The air is said to carry faint scents, roses, tobacco, and old wood that seem to emanate from no visible source. Many stories emphasize the personal nature of encounters at Ravenwood. One guest described feeling a gentle tug at her sleeve while exploring an upstairs room, followed by the scent of perfume, strong and sweet, lingering in the air. Another recounted hearing the faint sound of a piano playing in the parlor late at night, though the instrument had been covered and unused for decades. These experiences leave visitors with a sense that the plantation is not merely haunted, but alive with memory. Each room, hallway, and staircase acting as a vessel for the emotions and experiences of those who walked there before. Historical records suggest why Ravenwood retains such strong residual energy. The original owners endured personal tragedies, including early deaths, illness, and losses during wartime. The enslaved workers, too, lived under constant hardship, their labor and suffering contributing to the estate's wealth while leaving lasting imprints on its atmosphere. Paranormal experts theorize that these concentrated emotions of grief, fear, and fleeting joy may have anchored themselves to the property, replaying subtly through time. Visitors often leave Ravenwood Plantation with a profound sense of having witnessed something beyond ordinary experience. The combination of shadowy figures, phantom footsteps, unexplained movements, and laughter creates an atmosphere that is both beautiful and haunting. Whether these experiences are the result of restless spirits, echoes of past trauma, or the lingering weight of history, Ravenwood remains a place where the past feels vividly present. The plantation's halls, rooms, and gardens whisper stories that demand attention, reminding all who enter that history never truly sleeps, and that the spirits of those who lived and labored at Ravenwood continue to watch, move, and whisper through the passage of time. Roseland Plantation, located in the historic city of Natchez, Mississippi, is a place where the elegance of the antebellum South is shadowed by a lingering presence that has haunted the property for generations. Its sprawling gardens, grand columns, and meticulously maintained architecture reflect a time of wealth and refinement. Yet beneath the beauty lies a history marked by sorrow and hardship. Visitors often speak of an atmosphere that feels charged, as if unseen eyes are observing their every move. Shadowy forms gliding through gardens, unexplained noises echoing through empty rooms, and furniture shifting ever so slightly are among the phenomena that lend Roseland its haunted reputation. Many who explore the plantation at dusk or after dark report fleeting glimpses of ghostly figures near windows, their features obscured by shadows but their presence undeniable. Constructed in the early 1800s, Roseland Plantation was a symbol of affluence in Natchez. Its owners spared no expense, importing ornate furnishings and hiring craftsmen to create intricate woodwork and plaster ceilings. The house was designed to impress visitors, from the sweeping front porches to the long corridors and expansive rooms intended for lavish gatherings. Beyond the grandeur, however, the estate relied on the labor of enslaved workers who toiled in the fields and maintained the household. Their lives, marked by hardship and suffering, left a deep and lasting imprint upon the land, one that many believe continues to manifest as supernatural activity. Those who walk the gardens at Roseland often report encounters with apparitions. Shadowy figures are seen moving silently among the flower beds, along walkways, or near the tall hedges. These forms are described as transient and elusive, appearing for only a few moments before fading into the foliage. Some visitors have recounted seeing figures dressed in period clothing, gliding across the grounds as if carrying out tasks from long ago. Others have observed fleeting reflections of people in the large bay windows. Though the rooms themselves remain empty, the presence is subtle but persistent, creating a sense that the land itself remembers its past. Inside the plantation, the haunting takes on a more tactile quality. Guests report furniture shifting slightly, chairs scraping across wooden floors, and small objects moving with no apparent cause. Doors sometimes creak open or close on their own, and the faint echo of footsteps is frequently heard in hallways long abandoned. Some have reported hearing whispers that seem to emanate from empty rooms, conversations that vanish as soon as they are approached. Paranormal researchers visiting Roseland have documented temperature fluctuations and unexplainable sounds, reinforcing the accounts of visitors who feel that the house is not entirely vacant. Evening brings some of the most dramatic experiences at Roseland Plantation. Shadowy forms are said to appear near windows, often as the last rays of sunlight fade across the lawns. Guests have described seeing silhouettes of figures standing or walking within the interior, only to vanish when someone draws closer. These sightings are frequently accompanied by a sudden chill, a drop in temperature that seems concentrated around the apparition. Some believe that these phenomena are residual energy from past inhabitants, replaying moments frozen in time. Others feel that the spirits are more active, responding to the presence of living visitors in a subtle, watchful manner. The plantation's gardens, with their carefully arranged flower beds, fountains, and winding paths, have their own share of mysterious occurrences. Visitors walking the grounds in the early evening often report hearing the faint sounds of movement, the shuffle of footsteps on gravel, the rustle of skirts across the lawn, or soft laughter that seems to come from nowhere. Lantern-like lights have occasionally been seen, hovering near hedges or along pathways, disappearing as one approaches. Some guests describe an overwhelming sense of being watched, as though invisible eyes track every step among the blooms and shaded alcoves. Inside, the parlor and dining rooms are frequent centers of activity. Guests report seeing shadows move across the walls, hearing the soft clatter of dishes, and sometimes feeling a presence nearby. The old furniture, polished and preserved, is often the subject of subtle disturbances. Chairs slightly askew, tableware shifted, and occasional knocks or thuds that cannot be explained. Some have interpreted these events as echoes of past gatherings, the lives and routines of those who once occupied the rooms, replaying like an invisible theater. Historical records indicate that Roseland Plantation was witness to personal tragedies that may contribute to its haunting. The original owners experienced early deaths, illness, and the strains of managing a large estate. The enslaved people who labored there endured suffering that was both physical and emotional, their presence ever woven into the fabric of the land. Paranormal experts suggest that the strong emotions tied to these events, grief, sorrow, joy, and fermi, have left an imprint on the plantation, producing the subtle and unsettling phenomena reported today. Visitors often leave Roseland Plantation with the sense of having witnessed more than just a historic home. The shadowy figures, the shifting furniture, the whispers and footsteps, and the fleeting reflections in windows and mirrors create an atmosphere that is both beautiful and haunting. Walking through the hallways, exploring the gardens, or pausing near the tall windows, one cannot shake the feeling that the past is alive here, present in every room and corridor. The haunting at Roseland Plantation is a reminder that history carries weight, and that the people who lived, worked, and died on this land continue to leave their mark. Shadowy forms in the gardens, whispers echoing through hallways, and the subtle movement of objects are all echoes of lives long past, preserved within the walls and grounds of this storied plantation. Visitors who step through its doors often find that the elegance of Roseland is inseparable from its spectral presence, leaving an unforgettable impression that lingers long after they have departed. Magnolia Plantation, located in the historic city of Natchez, Mississippi, is a site where elegance and history intersect with an unmistakable air of the supernatural. Its grand architecture, sweeping gardens, and carefully preserved interiors reflect the wealth and refinement of its original owners. Yet beneath the beauty lies a lingering presence that has fascinated and unsettled visitors for decades. Many who walk its halls or explore its grounds describe experiences that suggest the spirits of former residents continue to linger. Shadowy figures moving through hallways, cold spots near bedrooms, faint music drifting from empty rooms, and the occasional glimpse of a woman in white gliding past doors all contribute to Magnolia Plantation's reputation as a haunted estate. Built in the early 19th century, Magnolia Plantation was intended as a showpiece, a testament to the prosperity of its owners. Inside, ornate furniture, intricate woodwork, and grand chandeliers convey a sense of elegance and sophistication. Outside, meticulously maintained gardens and tree-lined walkways reflect the attention given to beauty and leisure. Yet the plantation's history is not solely one of refinement. Like many estates of its time, it relied heavily on the labor of enslaved people, whose toil and suffering have left a subtle but persistent mark upon the property. Visitors and paranormal investigators alike suggest that these emotional imprints, both of privilege and pain, may contribute to the eerie occurrences reported across the plantation. Inside the mansion, the paranormal activity is most often felt in the hallways and bedrooms. Guests frequently describe shadowy figures moving along corridors, sometimes disappearing through walls or vanishing as they approach. The movements are deliberate, almost purposeful, as if the spirits are reenacting routines from long ago. Cold spots appear unpredictably, often near doors or in the corners of rooms, sending shivers down the spine of those nearby. Some visitors have felt the distinct sensation of being watched, even when alone, as though invisible eyes track their every step. Perhaps the most compelling and widely reported apparition is the faint outline of a woman in white. She is often seen gliding past doorways or hovering near the top of staircases. Witnesses describe her as ethereal, her figure delicate and translucent, with an expression that seems both sorrowful and serene. Some speculate that she was once a member of the family, while others suggest she may be a spirit connected to the many personal tragedies that occurred within the plantation over the decades. Regardless of her identity, the presence of the woman in white is a focal point for many of Magnolia's hauntings, leaving a lasting impression on those who glimpse her form. alongside visual phenomena. Visitors have reported hearing phantom music drifting from the mansion's parlor and dining rooms. The melodies are faint, almost as though carried from another time, echoing through hallways and spilling into adjoining rooms. Sometimes the music appears to come from a piano that has not been played in decades, while at other times it seems to emanate from no visible source at all. The combination of ghostly tunes and distant footsteps creates an immersive sense of the past, making it difficult for visitors to distinguish between memory and reality. Magnolia plantations, gardens, though serene during the day, take on a more mysterious air at dusk and after dark. Lantern-like lights have been reported floating among the flower beds, and some guests have glimpsed shadowy figures moving between the hedges and trees. The rustle of skirts across the lawns, whispers carried by the wind, and the sudden appearance of cold air patches contribute to a sense that the grounds themselves remember and replay moments from the lives that unfolded there. Even walking alone along the stone pathways, visitors often feel a subtle, persistent presence, as if unseen observers accompany them silently. In the bedrooms, cold drafts and unexplained movements are frequently experienced. Chairs have been found shifted, doors slightly ajar, and personal items seemingly displaced without explanation. Some guests report feeling the brush of a phantom hand or the pressure of an unseen presence as they sit or rest in these rooms. Footsteps along the upper floors are common, often accompanied by soft, indistinct whispers that vanish when approached. These phenomena suggest that the spirits at Magnolia Plantation are not merely residual, but actively engaged with the environment and the people who enter it. Historical records offer insight into why Magnolia Plantation retains such strong spiritual energy. The original owners endured personal losses, including illness, accidents, and deaths within the family. The enslaved workers endured physical and emotional hardships that shaped their experiences and left lasting imprints on the property. Paranormal experts suggest that the concentrated emotions of grief, joy, labor, and loss may have anchored themselves to the mansion and grounds, replaying subtly over time. Visitors often leave Magnolia Plantation with the impression that they have walked not only through a historic estate but also through a space alive with memory. The shadowy figures, ghostly music, cold spots, and fleeting glimpses of the woman in white create a hauntingly vivid experience. Walking through the hallways, resting in the parlor, or wandering the gardens, one senses the presence of the past in a deeply personal way. The plantation serves as a reminder that history is not confined to books or photographs. It lingers in the air, the walls, and the very soil itself. Magnolia Plantation stands as both a testament to Natchez' rich history and a focal point for the supernatural. Its haunted hallways, spectral figures, and unexplained phenomena offer visitors an experience that is equal parts eerie and enchanting. Whether one interprets these occurrences as ghostly manifestations, echoes of the past, or the natural residual energy of a place steeped in history, the impact is undeniable. For those who venture within, Magnolia Plantation is a space where the elegance of the antebellum South and the presence of its lingering spirits coexist, creating an unforgettable, hauntingly beautiful experience. Riverwood Plantation, located in the historic city of Natchez, Mississippi, is a place where history and the supernatural intertwine, leaving a lasting impression on those who explore its grounds. The plantation, known for its grand architecture and beautifully maintained gardens, carries a weight of history that seems to permeate every room and corridor. Visitors have long reported strange occurrences that suggest the spirits of past residents remain present, moving quietly among the shadows. Ghostly apparitions in parlors, phantom footsteps echoing on staircases, and whispers calling from empty rooms are common experiences. Some guests even describe objects subtly shifting as if guided by invisible hands, creating an atmosphere that is both fascinating and unnerving. Constructed in the early 1800s, Riverwood Plantation was a symbol of wealth and refinement. The house features high ceilings, ornate woodwork, and spacious rooms designed for entertaining and daily life alike. Outside, the plantation grounds include expansive gardens, towering trees, and stone pathways that wind through the property, giving it a serene but imposing presence. Beneath this elegance lies a complex history, including the labor of enslaved individuals whose lives and hardships are believed to contribute to the lingering spiritual energy at Riverwood. Visitors often note that while the house is strikingly beautiful, there is an undeniable sense of presence, as though the echoes of the past have not fully faded. Inside the mansion, the haunting is most pronounced in the parlor and along the staircases. Guests report seeing shadowy figures that appear and vanish without warning, sometimes gliding across rooms or standing silently in corners. Phantom footsteps often accompany these sightings, moving through hallways or ascending and descending stairs, even when no one else is present. Many describe the sensation of being observed, as if unseen eyes follow their movements. Some have felt sudden cold drafts in specific areas, particularly near stairwells or doorways, intensifying the sense that the house itself is alive with memory. Paranormal phenomena at Riverwood Plantation are not limited to visual experiences. Whispers are commonly reported, often carrying fragmented phrases or names that seem to emanate from empty rooms. These murmurs are subtle, but they create a palpable tension, as though the house itself is attempting to communicate. Some visitors have claimed that the whispers intensify in the late afternoon or evening, moments when the fading light seems to cast a home into a more spectral ambient. Objects moving on their own chairs, shifting slightly, decorative items tilting, and doors closing gently without cause further reinforce the sense that unseen forces occupy the mansion. The parlor, a center of past social activity, is a focal point for many of the plantation's hauntings. Visitors have reported ghostly figures appearing near the fireplace, moving across the room, or sitting in chairs that no one occupies. Faint sounds of conversation, laughter, or the shuffle of feet have been heard, often fading when approached. Some guests have experienced an inexplicable pressure in the room, as though the presence of spirits is nearly tangible. The combination of visual and auditory phenomena creates an immersive experience, giving the impression that the parlor is a window into another time, when the house was alive with activity and its residents moved freely through the space. The staircases at Riverwood are particularly active, with many guests describing phantom footsteps echoing along the steps. Some report seeing shadowy forms ascend or descend silently, their movements deliberate and unnervingly calm. Cold drafts often accompany these appearances, and some have felt a sudden chill as though a presence has passed directly through them. Visitors sometimes hear whispers or soft voices near the stairwells, adding to the sense that the spirits are not only present but also aware of those exploring their home. The combination of movement, sound, and temperature shifts creates an atmosphere that is deeply compelling and hauntingly real. Beyond the interiors, the gardens and grounds also play a role in Riverwood's spectral activity. Visitors walking the stone pathways in the late evening often describe seeing faint figures moving between trees or along hedges. Some guests have witnessed faint lights flickering among the gardens or moving shadows that seem to vanish when approached. The plantation grounds, like the house itself, carry the weight of history, and the natural beauty of the property is often tinged with an unshakable sense of the past lingering nearby. Historical records suggest that Riverwood Plantation was home to numerous personal tragedies over the decades. Illness, sudden deaths, and the harsh realities of plantation life contributed to an emotionally charged environment, leaving behind energies that may manifest as the paranormal phenomena observed today. The combination of grief, joy, labor, and daily life appears to have imprinted itself on the property, creating the residual effects that visitors continue to experience. Some experts suggest that these occurrences are echoes of past activity, while others believe the spirits may still interact with the living, drawn to the presence of visitors exploring their former home. Guests often leave Riverwood Plantation with a deep sense of having walked through history in a tangible way. The shadowy figures, phantom footsteps, whispers, and subtle movements of objects create a haunting yet unforgettable experience. Every hallway, room, and garden seems alive with the echoes of the past, allowing visitors to feel connected to the lives and stories of those who once inhabited the estate. The mansion is more than a historic site. It is a living testament to the endurance of memory, presence, and the unseen forces that linger long after the last resident has departed. Riverwood Plantation remains a destination for those intrigued by history and the supernatural alike. The ghostly apparitions in parlors, the echoes of footsteps on staircases, the whispers from empty rooms, and the shifting objects all contribute to a sense of timelessness, as if the plantation itself is an ongoing witness to centuries of human experience. Visitors to Riverwood are often left with the impression that while the house may be still in structure, it is anything but empty, holding within its walls and grounds a past that is both beautiful and haunting, waiting quietly to reveal itself. Liberty Hall Plantation in Natchez, Mississippi, is a historic estate steeped in both grandeur and lingering mystery. Built in the early 19th century, the plantation reflects the elegance and wealth of its original owners, with expansive rooms, ornate woodwork, and carefully maintained gardens. However, behind its stately appearance lies a history shaped not only by prosperity, but also by the labor and suffering of enslaved people, a history that many believe has left a lingering spiritual presence throughout the property. Visitors to Liberty Hall often report experiences that suggest a past is not entirely gone. Shadowy figures appear in hallways and rooms, cold drafts sweep through areas with no apparent source, and faint echoes of music drift from abandoned spaces, creating a palpable sense of the plantation's haunted past. The mansion's interior, with its high ceilings and polished wooden floors, serves as the focal point for many of the reported hauntings. Guests often describe seeing figures moving silently through the halls, sometimes lingering in corners, other times gliding along corridors before vanishing without explanation. These apparitions are sometimes dressed in period attire, suggesting that the spirits of both the original owners and the enslaved people who lived and worked at the plantation continue to occupy the space. In several rooms, visitors have reported sudden cold spots, a stark contrast to the otherwise temperate air, and a sensation of being watched even when alone. The combination of visual, tactile, and emotional experiences creates an immersive atmosphere, as though the mansion itself is a vessel for the memories of the past. Music is another commonly reported phenomenon at Liberty Hall. Guests have heard faint strains of piano or distant melodies emanating from rooms that have long been unoccupied. The music often seems to come from no identifiable source, drifting down hallways and sometimes fading into silence before it can be fully identified. Some theorists suggest these sounds are echoes of the plantation's past, lingering remnants of daily life or social gatherings held within the mansion. For many visitors, hearing the music alongside the subtle movement of shadows and the cold drafts enhances the sense that Liberty Hall is not merely a historic home, but a space alive with memory and unseen presence. The hallways and staircases of the plantation are particularly active with paranormal activity. Guests frequently report phantom footsteps echoing along wooden floors, sometimes ascending and descending stairs when no one else is present. These footsteps are often accompanied by the faint whispers of voices, indistinct but emotionally charged, as if the spirits are communicating fragments of their stories or observing the living as they move through the house. The whispers, often carried on inexplicable drafts of air, have been reported near bedrooms, parlors, and hallways alike, heightening the sense that the plantation's history is layered and persistent. Abandoned rooms at Liberty Hall seem to attract some of the most eerie encounters. Visitors describe furniture shifting slightly on its own, doors opening and closing without cause, and objects subtly displaced. Some have seen shadows move across walls or floors without any apparent origin, leaving an unsettling impression of activity in spaces where no one is expected to be. The mansion's architecture, with its multiple hidden corners and grand rooms, seems to lend itself naturally to these mysterious phenomena, allowing the spirits to occupy areas unseen while still leaving their presence perceptible. Beyond the mansion, the plantation grounds also hold an aura of the supernatural. The gardens, once carefully cultivated and maintained, are said to echo with footsteps and whispers after sunset. Guests walking along the pathways have reported seeing fleeting shadows among the trees or near garden structures, sometimes accompanied by a sudden chill in the air. The combination of natural beauty and these subtle disturbances creates a surreal experience, as though the past is layered over the present. Lantern-like lights or vague shapes occasionally appear in the evening, giving the impression of ghostly figures moving among the flora, preserving the memories of the people who once tended the land. Historical context provides insight into why Liberty Hall retains such a strong spiritual imprint. The plantation witnessed the lives and struggles of multiple generations of owners and enslaved workers, each contributing emotions and experiences that may have become anchored to the environment. Illness, loss, labor, and domestic life all played a role in creating a charged atmosphere, which some believe continues to manifest as the paranormal events reported today. These occurrences are often subtle, yet unmistakable, providing visitors with a haunting glimpse into the daily life and emotional weight of a bygone era. Visitors to Liberty Hall often describe leaving with a profound sense of connection to the past. The shadowy figures, cold drafts, whispered voices, and faint music create a hauntingly tangible sense that the plantation is not merely a historic structure, but a living repository of memory. Every step through the halls, every glance into a room, and every walk along the grounds seems to evoke echoes of lives once lived, tragedies endured, and moments of joy or sorrow that have left an enduring mark. Liberty Hall Plantation serves as a powerful reminder of the dual nature of history, its elegance and grandeur, alongside its suffering and struggles. The presence of spirits, whether those of owners, enslaved individuals, or other residents, enriches the experience for visitors, blending historical education with the thrill of the supernatural. Shadowy figures gliding through parlors, whispers from empty rooms, cold spots, and ethereal music make the plantation a place where the past is both remembered and felt. For those willing to explore its halls and gardens, Liberty Hall offers a unique opportunity to witness history not only as a record of the past, but as an enduring presence that quietly observes and interacts with the present. Bayou Bend Plantation, nestled in the historic city of Natchez, Mississippi, is a striking example of antebellum architecture and Southern heritage. Its grand hallways, ornate woodwork, and sprawling gardens reflect the wealth and status of the families who once lived there. But beneath the elegant facade lies a past filled with both triumph and sorrow. Over the years, Bayou Bend has earned a reputation as one of Natchez's most haunted estates, attracting visitors intrigued by both its history and the paranormal phenomena reported throughout the property. Guests frequently describe ghostly figures pacing through hallways, phantom music drifting from abandoned parlors, and sudden cold spots that appear without warning, creating an unsettling yet fascinating atmosphere. The mansion itself is a focal point of reported activity. Visitors often notice shadowy figures moving quietly through the halls, sometimes lingering at the end of a corridor or disappearing as they approach. These apparitions are described as tall, often indistinct, and dressed in period clothing, suggesting they may be the spirits of former residents, servants, or other individuals who lived and worked on the plantation. The movements are subtle yet undeniable, and many guests report a strong feeling of being observed, as though unseen eyes are following their every step. The sense of presence is further amplified by sudden cold drafts in rooms that are otherwise warm, creating a chilling contrast that leaves visitors questioning what is real and what is not. Phantom music is another hallmark of the hauntings at Bayou Bend. In some of the parlors, guests have reported hearing faint piano melodies or soft strains of strings, even when no instruments are present and no one else is in the house. The music often drifts through the halls, fading in and out, sometimes accompanied by the faint sound of footsteps or the shuffle of skirts. These auditory experiences seem to correspond with the mansion's peak hours of activity, late afternoons or early evenings when shadows stretch long across the rooms and the fading light creates an almost ethereal ambience. Many visitors describe a sense of melancholy intertwined with the music, as if the melodies are remnants of long-past gatherings or moments of personal grief frozen in time. The staircases of Bayou Bend are particularly known for unusual phenomena. Phantom footsteps are frequently reported echoing along the wooden steps, sometimes ascending and descending with no visible occupant. Cold drafts often accompany these footsteps, and some guests have reported hearing whispers or indistinct murmurs near the stairwells. These sounds are often difficult to trace, seeming to come from multiple directions at once or vanishing as soon as one attempts to locate their source. The combination of movement, sound, and temperature shifts contributes to a deeply immersive and haunting experience, making visitors feel as though the past is present alongside them. In addition to visual and auditory experiences, physical sensations are commonly reported throughout the mansion. Sudden drops in temperature occur in specific rooms or hallways, while other areas remain unaffected. Some guests have felt a pressure or heaviness, as if an unseen presence has entered the space, and objects occasionally appear to move on their own. Chairs might tilt slightly, doors swing open or closed, and small decorative items shift without explanation. While subtle, these manifestations reinforce the impression that the spirits of Bayou Bend are active, and that the mansion itself is more than a mere historical building, is a vessel for the energy of its past inhabitants. The plantation grounds also contribute to the eerie atmosphere. The gardens, once meticulously tended, now carry a sense of quiet mystery as evening falls. Visitors walking along the pathways report seeing fleeting shadows among the trees or lights that flicker without apparent source. Footsteps along gravel paths are sometimes heard when the grounds are empty, and the faint rustle of clothing or whispers seems to drift through the air. The combination of natural beauty and unexplained activity creates a surreal experience, as if the past is layered over the present, waiting to be glimpsed by those who are attentive enough to notice. Historical context provides insight into the lingering presence at Bayou Bend Plantation. The estate witnessed generations of families and workers living through times of wealth, hardship, and tragedy. Illness, sudden deaths, and the grueling labor endured by enslaved people contributed to an emotionally charged environment, leaving behind a resonance of experiences that may manifest as paranormal phenomena. Visitors sense that these echoes are not merely figments of imagination, but rather imprints of intense human emotion, joy, sorrow, tension, and endurance that remain tied to the estate. Guests often leave Bayou Bend Plantation with a profound sense of connection to the past. Shadowy figures in hallways, whispers from empty rooms, the soft strains of phantom music, and sudden cold spots all contribute to a hauntingly vivid encounter. Each room and corridor seems to retain fragments of memory, allowing visitors to feel the weight of history in a direct and personal way. Whether these experiences are truly supernatural or the mind's response to the mansion's charged atmosphere, they are consistently reported with remarkable similarity, suggesting that Bayou Bend holds a unique and undeniable presence. Bayou Bend Plantation stands as both a historic treasure and a site of enduring mystery. Its ghostly figures, unexplained music, and cold drafts create an atmosphere that is simultaneously beautiful and unsettling. Visitors are drawn not only to the mansion's architectural splendor and historical significance, but also to the lingering spirits that seem to inhabit its halls and grounds. Every step through the house, every glance across the gardens, and every sound in the empty rooms serves as a reminder that the past at Bayou Bend is never truly gone. It waits quietly, observing and interacting with those who enter, preserving the stories of lives long past in a subtle yet unmistakable presence. Evergreen Plantation, located in the historic city of Natchez, Mississippi, is a sprawling estate known for its grand architecture and meticulously maintained grounds. Built during the antebellum era, the plantation reflects the wealth and influence of its original owners. Yet behind its elegance lies a complex history marked by the hardships and suffering of enslaved individuals who worked the land. Over the years, Evergreen has gained a reputation not just for its historical significance, but also for the paranormal experiences reported by visitors. Guests frequently describe phantom children playing in the gardens, shadowy figures moving through hallways. The gardens of Evergreen Plantation are often the first place where visitors sense the lingering presence of the past. Despite the serene appearance of the landscaped grounds, many report seeing fleeting figures of children running or playing among the flowers and hedges. These apparitions often appear in the early morning or late afternoon, when the sun casts long shadows across the grounds, giving the movements an ethereal quality. Some guests have described hearing laughter or the faint sound of footsteps on the gravel paths, even when they are alone. Inside the mansion, the experiences take on a more tangible and sometimes unnerving quality. Visitors have reported seeing shadowy figures gliding through hallways or lingering in corners. These figures are often dressed in period clothing, suggesting they may be former residents or workers of the estate. The movements are usually subtle slight shifts in posture, fleeting glimpses in mirrors or windows but unmistakable. Some guests have recounted the sensation of being watched even when no one else is present, and the feeling is often amplified by the mansion's high ceilings, polished wood floors, and long corridors that seem to carry sound in unusual ways. Whispers are another common phenomenon reported at Evergreen Plantation. Guests describe hearing soft, indistinct voices calling out from empty rooms or drifting along hallways. These whispers are often unintelligible but carry an emotional resonance, ranging from playful murmurs to somber tones, reflecting the mixture of joy, sorrow, and labor that characterize life on the plantation. The voices sometimes appear to respond to movement within the house, creating the impression that the spirits are interacting with the living. Cold drafts frequently accompany these auditory experiences, as though the temperature itself reacts to the unseen presence. Staircases and hidden corners of the mansion seem to be particularly active areas. Visitors have reported phantom footsteps echoing along wooden stairs, sometimes ascending or descending when no one else is nearby. Some guests have felt a subtle pressure, a sense of presence just behind them, or observed objects shifting slightly without explanation. Doors occasionally open or close on their own, and small items such as books or decorative pieces have been found displaced from their original positions. These subtle yet persistent manifestations suggest that the spirits of Evergreen are not confined to one area but move throughout the house, leaving traces of their presence wherever they go. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile experiences makes visiting Evergreen Plantation a deeply immersive encounter. Guests often describe a sense of connection to the past, feeling as though the estate itself preserves the memories of all who lived and labored there. The mansion and gardens become a living narrative, where shadows, whispers, and subtle movements reveal fragments of daily life, moments of joy, and the weight of hardship endured over generations. Visitors often leave with a profound impression that the plantation is more than just a historical site. It is a repository of human emotion, still resonating long after those who created it have passed. Even the exterior of Evergreen holds its own haunting presence. Walking along the pathways or near the old outbuildings, some visitors have reported seeing fleeting shadows among the trees or glimpsing shapes that vanish when approached. The estate's outbuildings, once bustling with activity, now sit quietly, yet many report sensing the energy of those who worked there, particularly in the evening when the fading light casts the grounds in a soft, eerie glow. Lantern-like shapes or unexplainable movements often appear, suggesting that the spirits of Evergreen are not limited to the main house but occupy the entire property. Historical context helps explain the lingering presence at Evergreen Plantation. The estate witnessed generations of people experiencing both prosperity and hardship, and the intense emotions associated with labor, loss, and family life may have left an imprint on the environment. The plantation's history includes the lives of both wealthy owners and enslaved individuals, each group contributing to the emotional resonance that many believe continues to manifest in the form of apparitions, whispers, and cold drafts. Guests sense that the spirits are a blend of these experiences, creating a complex and layered haunting that is at once sorrowful, playful, and poignant. Visitors often describe leaving Evergreen Plantation with a sense of awe and unease. The sight of phantom children in the gardens, shadowy figures in the hallways, whispers drifting through empty rooms, and sudden cold spots all combine to create an experience that is both beautiful and haunting. Every step through the mansion, every walk along the garden paths, and every glance into empty rooms seems to bring the past vividly to life. Evergreen Plantation stands as a testament not only to architectural and historical significance, but also to the enduring presence of those who once lived, worked, and played there. The spirits of Evergreen remain, quietly observing and interacting with the present, a constant reminder that history is never truly gone. It lingers, waiting to be felt by those who enter its halls and grounds. Belgrove Plantation, located in Natchez, Mississippi, stands as a remarkable example of antebellum architecture. Its grand columns, sweeping staircases, and meticulously maintained grounds reflecting the wealth and status of its former owners. Yet beyond its elegance and historical significance, Belgrove has earned a reputation as one of the most haunted estates in the region. Visitors to the plantation frequently report experiences that defy explanation: apparitions appearing on staircases, phantom footsteps echoing through empty hallways, flickering lights with no electrical cause, and an overwhelming sensation of being watched. These phenomena have made Belgrove a destination not just for history enthusiasts, but for those drawn to the paranormal. Many guests first notice the haunting presence upon entering the grand foyer. The sweeping staircase, polished wooden floors, and towering ceilings give the space an imposing elegance. Yet many visitors sense an unseen presence almost immediately. Some have reported glimpsing shadowy figures ascending or descending the staircase, only to vanish when approached. Visitors describe the feeling of eyes following them as they move through the hall, a sensation that grows stronger in the quieter hours of the day when the estate is nearly empty. Phantom footsteps are among the most commonly reported phenomena at Belgrove. Guests often hear the soft tap of shoes along the polished floors, sometimes moving in tandem with the shadowy figures on the staircase. The sounds are not limited to the main hallways. Many report footsteps echoing alongside corridors and upstairs bedrooms, sometimes accompanied by the creak of floorboards, as if someone invisible is pacing back and forth. These footsteps can start and stop abruptly, or appear to circle the same areas repeatedly, creating a disorienting and unsettling atmosphere. Unexplained flickering lights add to the eerie ambience of Belgrove Plantation. In certain rooms, visitors have observed chandeliers or lamps flickering despite the electricity being turned off, and in some cases, candles seem to ignite on their own. These lights often coincide with the appearance of shadowy figures or the sound of phantom footsteps, as though the illumination itself is a response to the presence of spirits. Some guests have felt a warm or cold sensation associated with these flickers, further enhancing the impression that the house is alive with unseen energy. The sensation of being watched is a pervasive aspect of the Belgrove experience. Visitors often describe a heavy, almost palpable presence in certain areas of the mansion. Even when moving alone through empty rooms, many report feeling as though invisible eyes are following their every move. This feeling intensifies in the upper floors and hallways, where the architecture creates narrow corridors and high ceilings, amplifying sound and shadow. Some guests claim to have caught glimpses of faces reflected in mirrors or windows, faces that vanish when they turn to look directly. The plantations, bedrooms, and parlors are also hotspots for paranormal activity. Guests have reported hearing whispers, often indistinct but suggestive of conversations or commands, drifting through empty rooms. Some have described the faint sound of footsteps moving across wooden floors or the rustling of fabric, as if someone dressed in period attire is present but unseen. In certain areas, cold drafts appear suddenly, sometimes accompanied by the subtle shifting of objects, such as chairs or decorative items. These experiences often leave visitors with a sense of both awe and unease, as if they have entered a space where the past and present coexist. the grounds of Belgrove Plantation contribute further to the haunting atmosphere. Walking along the gardens or pathways near the outbuildings, guests occasionally report seeing fleeting shadows moving among the trees, or lights that appear and disappear without explanation. Footsteps along the gravel or soft rustling in the hedges are often heard when the grounds are otherwise empty. Some have even felt the subtle brush of an unseen presence as they stroll through the property, reinforcing the impression that the spirits are not confined to the interior of the mansion, but occupy the entire estate. Historical context provides insight into the possible origins of these hauntings. Belgrove, like many plantations of the antebellum South, witnessed generations of people living under a complex web of social hierarchies, labor and tragedy, illness, sudden deaths, and the harsh realities of slavery contributed to an emotionally charged environment, leaving behind strong imprints of sorrow, fear, and resilience. Visitors often sense that the spirits inhabiting Belgrove reflect this history, carrying with them fragments of lives lived under both privilege and hardship. The apparitions, footsteps, whispers, and flickering lights appear to be echoes of these intense human experiences, lingering in the spaces where they once occurred. For many visitors, the haunting at Belgrove Plantation is a deeply immersive experience. Shadowy figures on staircases, phantom footsteps echoing through hallways, unexplained flickering lights, and the feeling of being watched create an atmosphere where the past seems palpably present. Every glance down a corridor, every step across the polished floors, and every whisper of sound carries the weight of history and the lingering presence of those who walked these halls long before. Belgrove Plantation stands as a testament not only to architectural and historical significance, but also to the enduring presence of the past. The spirits that purportedly inhabit the mansion are a reminder that history leaves traces beyond documents and photographs, imprinted instead in the very spaces once occupied by people long gone. Visitors leave with a sense of awe and reflection, aware that the grand estate holds secrets and stories still alive in the flickering lights, shadowed hallways, and quiet corners of Belgrove. Its haunting presence endures, quietly observing, subtly interacting, and preserving the echoes of lives that have left an indelible mark on this historic home. Willow Oak Plantation, in Natchez, Mississippi, stands as a striking example of antebellum architecture, its grand columns and sweeping porches echoing a bygone era. Yet, behind its stately facade, the mansion carries stories that are far darker than its elegant exterior suggests. Visitors to Willow Oak often speak of experiences that defy explanation, shadowy figures gliding silently through rooms, cold drafts that appear without warning, and objects that seem to move on their own. These phenomena have earned the plantation a reputation as one of the most haunted estates in the region, drawing those fascinated by history and the paranormal alike. Upon entering the mansion, many guests report an immediate sense of being watched. The polished wooden floors, high ceilings, and period furnishings give the home a sense of life and elegance. Yet the atmosphere often shifts subtly, becoming heavy and uneasy. Shadowy figures are frequently seen moving along hallways or through rooms, their shapes indistinct but undeniably present. Some appear to glide effortlessly across the floors, their forms reminiscent of former residents from decades past. Others linger near windows or corners, seemingly observing the living before disappearing into the shadows. Whispers are a hallmark of the haunting at Willow Oak. Guests often report hearing fragments of long-forgotten conversations, murmurs that seem to rise from the very walls of the mansion. These voices are rarely coherent, yet they carry a palpable sense of emotion, grief, longing, or urgency. Some visitors have described hearing names called softly from empty rooms or whispers of instructions as if the house itself is trying to communicate with those who walk its halls. The echoes often appear in areas of the mansion that feel removed from the main living spaces, giving the impression that the spirits of Willow Oak still occupy rooms once central to daily life. Cold drafts are another common occurrence. Visitors report sudden drops in temperature that seem to follow shadowy figures or coincide with whispered sounds. A room that moments before felt warm can become icy in an instant, producing a chill that travels through the body. These drafts are often accompanied by the sensation of an unseen presence, heightening the overall sense that the house is alive with memories of its former inhabitants. Some guests even describe feeling a brush of air against their skin, as if a spirit has passed close by. Objects moving on their own have also been reported throughout the mansion. Chairs may shift slightly, doors may open or close, and small items are sometimes found out of place despite no human interaction. These subtle disturbances create a sense of the unseen, actively engaging with the living. A reminder that the mansion's history is not confined to the past. Visitors often notice these movements occurring near areas where shadowy figures have been observed, suggesting a connection between the visual and physical manifestations of the haunting. The architecture of Willow Oak itself seems to amplify these experiences. Narrow hallways, high ceilings, and reflective surfaces, such as mirrors, contribute to an atmosphere where shadows and sounds are easily amplified. Mirrors, in particular, are sometimes reported as showing forms that vanish when looked at directly, further blurring the line between reality and apparition. Guests have described seeing vague shapes reflected in mirrors, moving independently from their surroundings, creating a disorienting and eerie effect. Even the plantation grounds are not free from paranormal activity. Walkways lined with ancient oaks, overgrown gardens, and the surrounding woods often seem to hold whispers of the past. Visitors have glimpsed figures among the trees, sometimes in period attire, other times as indistinct shadows. These sightings are often accompanied by unexplained chills, distant footsteps, or soft murmurs carried on the wind. The natural landscape of Willow Oak seems to be imbued with a sense of lingering presence, where the boundary between the living and the spectral is thin. For many, the haunting at Willow Oak is both fascinating and unsettling. Guests leave with the impression that they have stepped into a world where history is not only remembered but actively present, where the spirits of Willow Oak's former residents continue to move among the rooms and grounds, quietly observing, whispering, and reminding the living of the mansion's long and layered history. Willow Oak Plantation remains a place where history and the supernatural intertwine. Each shadow, whisper, and unexplained movement serves as a testament to the enduring presence of those who once inhabited the estate, ensuring that the echoes of the past continue to resonate long after the last visitor has departed. Cedar Hill Plantation in Natchez, Mississippi, stands as a remarkable example of antebellum architecture. Its grand facades, sweeping verandas, and ornate interiors reflecting a bygone era of wealth and sophistication. Yet beyond its historical significance, Cedar Hill has developed a reputation as one of the most haunted plantations in the region. Visitors consistently report ghostly footsteps echoing through empty hallways, shadowy forms appearing in parlors, sudden drops in temperature, and mirrors that reflect figures not physically present. These phenomena have transformed Cedar Hill from a historical site into a magnet for those drawn to the paranormal, creating an experience where history and the supernatural seem to intertwine. Many guests first sense the haunting upon entering the main hall. The polished wood floors, high ceilings, and elegantly furnished rooms convey an immediate sense of grandeur. Yet some visitors feel the presence of unseen observers as they step across the threshold. Shadowy figures have been reported gliding silently along the corridors or appearing near doorways, often vanishing when approached. These figures are typically described as translucent or indistinct, yet their presence is unmistakable. Visitors often experience the eerie sensation of being watched, especially in quieter hours when the mansion is largely empty, heightening the sense that Cedar Hill is alive with unseen occupants. Phantom footsteps are among the most commonly reported experiences. Guests frequently hear the soft tap of shoes along the polished floors, moving in patterns that mimic human activity yet seem impossible to trace. These footsteps are often accompanied by the subtle creak of floorboards, as if invisible inhabitants are pacing, climbing staircases, or moving between rooms. At times, the sounds appear to circle back repeatedly, creating a disorienting effect for those attempting to follow or locate their source. Some visitors have even reported hearing footsteps in empty rooms above or below them, suggesting a multi-dimensional presence that permeates the house. Sudden temperature drops are another hallmark of Cedar Hill's haunted reputation. Guests describe walking through a warm room only to encounter a sudden chill that seems localized and unnatural. These cold spots often coincide with other paranormal activity, such as shadowy figures appearing nearby or objects subtly shifting. In several cases, guests have reported the sensation of a breeze brushing past them despite closed doors and windows, an experience that reinforces the feeling of unseen entities moving through the space. Mirrors in Cedar Hill Plantation are frequently cited as conduits for paranormal experiences. Visitors have described seeing shadowy forms reflected in mirrors that are absent when they turn to look directly. These reflections are often fleeting but unsettling, sometimes appearing as vague silhouettes or more defined figures dressed in period clothing. In some instances, guests have noticed multiple figures reflected in a single mirror, their movements synchronized yet inexplicable, as if replaying moments from long past events. These experiences create a sense of both wonder and unease, suggesting that the mansion preserves echoes of lives once lived. The parlors and common areas are particularly active with unexplained phenomena. Guests report seeing furniture shift slightly without cause, hearing whispers that seem to emanate from empty corners, and feeling sudden sensations of being watched. The whispering voices are often indistinct, carrying fragments of conversations, laughter, or commands. Some visitors interpret these sounds as remnants of the daily lives of the family and workers who once inhabited Cedar Hill, trapped in the architecture itself, replaying snippets of emotion and memory across time. Cedar Hill's bedrooms and upstairs corridors also appear to be hotspots for paranormal activity. Shadowy figures have been observed moving along walls or vanishing near furniture, and subtle movements of objects, such as chairs or decorative items, are often reported. Footsteps above or below a guest, the sound of a door softly closing, or a fleeting glimpse of movement out of the corner of the eye, all contribute to a sense of unease. Mirrors, particularly in private chambers, sometimes reflect images that vanish when directly observed, enhancing the perception of a layered reality where past and present coexist. The exterior grounds of Cedar Hill contribute to the plantation's haunting atmosphere. Guests walking along the garden's pathways or outbuildings occasionally report fleeting shadows among the trees, the sound of distant footsteps, or lights appearing and disappearing inexplicably. The quiet nature of the property, combined with its sprawling layout, allows even small sounds or movements to carry a heightened sense of presence. Many visitors have felt subtle touches or breezes while strolling the grounds, reinforcing the idea that the spirits of former residents and workers are not confined to the house but occupy the estate in its entirety. Historical context provides insight into Cedar Hill's persistent hauntings. Like many plantations in Natchez, it was home to generations of wealthy families and the enslaved individuals who worked the land. Lives of privilege and hardship, joy and sorrow, left an emotional imprint on the estate. The apparitions, footsteps, whispers, and temperature shifts reported by visitors can be seen as echoes of these intense human experiences, remnants of history lingering within the walls and grounds. Visitors often describe their experiences at Cedar Hill Plantation as immersive and deeply affecting. Shadowy figures, phantom footsteps, cold drafts, moving objects, and mysterious reflections in mirrors create a sensation that the past is alive, interacting with the present. Every creak of a floorboard, every whisper of wind, and every flicker of shadow seems to carry the weight of memory and presence-making. Cedar Hill, not just a historical site, but a space where the lives and emotions of its former inhabitants continue to resonate. Cedar Hill Plantation stands as a testament to the enduring presence of history and memory. The shadowy figures, whispers, footsteps, and mirrors all serve as reminders that the past is never truly gone. Guests leave with the sense that they have walked among echoes of lives once lived, that the mansion holds stories that refuse to fade, and that the spirits of Cedar Hill continue to observe, interact, and linger in every hallway, parlor, and garden of this historic estate. Its haunting presence remains a silent yet palpable reminder of the weight of history, the persistence of memory, and the unseen residents who continue to inhabit its halls. Ashwood Plantation in Natchez, Mississippi, stands as a striking relic of the antebellum South, its grand architecture and sprawling gardens offering a window into a bygone era of wealth and social prominence. Yet beneath its stately exterior, the plantation has earned a reputation for paranormal activity, drawing visitors intrigued not only by its history but also by its spectral inhabitants. Guests consistently report ghostly children appearing in the gardens, phantom music drifting from empty rooms, shadowy figures moving along hallways, and cold drafts that appear without explanation. These unusual experiences have made Ashwood Plantation a site where history and the supernatural seem to intertwine, creating an atmosphere charged with the lingering presence of the past. Many visitors first encounter signs of the haunting upon entering the front gardens. The manicured paths and flowering beds are beautiful, yet some guests report fleeting glimpses of small figures darting between the trees or peering from behind shrubbery. These apparitions are often described as children, sometimes playing or laughing, but vanish when approached. The sense of innocence, combined with an otherworldly quality, is disarming, and many who walk the gardens feel as though the space itself retains echoes of daily life from centuries past. Occasionally, the laughter and light footsteps of unseen children are heard even when no one else is nearby, amplifying the sense that the estate is alive with spectral activity. Phantom music is another phenomenon frequently reported at Ashwood. Visitors have described faint strains of piano, violin, or harp drifting through empty rooms, seemingly originating from parlors or chambers long abandoned. The melodies are often described as incomplete or disjointed, as though fragments of past performances are trapped in time, replaying intermittently. Some guests have reported hearing the music accompanied by a sense of movement, a shadow gliding along a wall, or a curtain swaying despite closed windows. These experiences are often subtle, yet leave a lasting impression, evoking both wonder and unease. Inside the mansion, shadowy figures are a common occurrence. Guests frequently report seeing silhouettes move along hallways or vanish near doorways. These forms are usually indistinct, appearing as fleeting shades or darker patches against the polished floors and walls. Some visitors have observed figures in period clothing, suggesting a connection to the plantation's former residents or staff. These apparitions often appear and disappear without warning, sometimes coinciding with other paranormal phenomena such as sudden cold spots, moving objects, or whispering voices. The presence of these figures creates a constant sense that one is not truly alone in the house, even when it is empty. Cold drafts add a tactile element to the haunting. Guests often describe sudden drops in temperature as they walk through particular hallways or enter certain rooms. A room that is warm and still one moment may feel icy the next, accompanied by goosebumps or a chill that seems to move along with them. These drafts often occur in conjunction with other paranormal activity, reinforcing the feeling that unseen entities are nearby. Visitors report the coldness, sometimes concentrated near doors, windows, or furniture, creating the impression that spirits are moving through the space, unseen yet perceptible through the sudden change in the air. Furniture and small objects also exhibit subtle, unexplained movements. Chairs may be slightly shifted, doors left ajar, or decorative items nudged from their original position. While these occurrences are often minor, they add to the overall sensation that Ashwood is inhabited by unseen presences. Guests have reported seeing shadows near these objects just before or after the movements, as if an invisible hand had passed by. Mirrors, too, have been the focus of paranormal experiences. Visitors describe glimpsing shapes or figures in reflections that are not present when they turn to look directly, adding a layer of mystery to the mansion's already haunting interior. The plantations, gardens, and exterior grounds continue to evoke the sense of lingering spirits. Guests strolling along tree-lined paths, past fountains, or near the old servant quarters sometimes report shadowy movements between the trees. Faint echoes of footsteps, or brief glimpses of figures disappearing into the foliage. Even the sounds of wind rustling through leaves or distant wildlife can take on an uncanny quality, as though the environment itself is attuned to the unseen activity that permeates the estate. These moments create a continuous connection between the indoor and outdoor spaces, reinforcing the idea that the entire property is infused with the memories and presence of its former inhabitants. Historical context offers insight into why Ashwood Plantation is so active. Like many antebellum estates, it was home to multiple generations of wealthy families and the laborers who worked its grounds. Lives of joy, sorrow, labor, and loss intersected here, leaving an emotional imprint that some believe continues to resonate. Ghostly children, shadowy forms, and phantom music may reflect the lingering energy of those who once walked the halls, played in the gardens, or performed daily tasks. The layers of human experience embedded in the property create an environment where the past seems to intersect with the present, giving visitors a profound sense of history made tangible. For those who explore Ashwood Plantation, the experiences are often immersive and deeply affecting. The combination of shadowy figures, ghostly children, phantom music, cold drafts, and subtle object movement creates an atmosphere where the past is palpably present. Every creak of a floorboard, every whispering sound, and every fleeting shadow reinforces the sensation that the mansion and its grounds are alive with memory, emotion, and lingering spirits. Ashwood Plantation remains a site where history and haunting converge. Shadowy figures in hallways, ghostly children in the gardens, phantom music, sudden cold drafts, and subtle movements of objects all serve as reminders that the past is never truly gone. Guests leave with the sense that they have walked among echoes of lives once lived, that the estate holds stories still vibrating through its walls, and that the spirits of Ashwood continue to inhabit the mansion and grounds. Its haunting presence is a quiet yet persistent reminder of memory, history, and the unseen lives that linger, watching, listening, and moving just beyond the edges of perception. Magnolia Oaks Plantation in Natchez, Mississippi, stands as an enduring emblem of Southern history. Its grand architecture, sprawling grounds, and ornate interiors offering a glimpse into life during the antebellum era. Yet, beyond its historical significance, the plantation has garnered a reputation for being haunted, attracting visitors drawn to its supernatural legacy. Guests frequently report seeing apparitions of women in antebellum dresses gliding through hallways, shadowy figures appearing near windows, and faint whispers that call out names from the past. These experiences create an eerie atmosphere where history and the paranormal intersect, leaving a lasting impression on those who walk the plantation grounds. The first signs of haunting often emerge upon entering the main house. Its polished wooden floors, high ceilings, and carefully preserved decor suggest grandeur and elegance, yet many visitors immediately sense an unseen presence. Shadowy figures are often observed moving along hallways or near windows, their forms sometimes fleeting and indistinct, but unmistakable. Some apparitions take on the appearance of women in flowing antebellum dresses, gliding silently through rooms as if replaying scenes from decades or centuries ago. Their movements are graceful, yet otherworldly, and they often vanish when approached, leaving visitors questioning whether what they saw was real or a trick of the light. Whispers are a common element of Magnolia Oaks haunting. Visitors have reported hearing faint voices calling out names, often from empty rooms or hallways where no one else is present. These whispers are typically soft and difficult to understand, carrying fragments of conversation or fleeting words that evoke a sense of longing or urgency. Some guests interpret these sounds as echoes of the plantation's former inhabitants, whether family members, servants, or others who lived and worked on the estate. The whispers often intensify in the quieter hours, creating a feeling that the house itself is alive with memory and unresolved emotion. Shadowy figures are not limited to the interior of the mansion. Visitors have reported seeing them near windows, sometimes peering out at the grounds or seemingly observing the activities of the living. These forms are often dark and indistinct, with no discernible features, yet their presence is unmistakable. At times, figures appear to be watching, following, or moving in sync with the visitor's path, creating an unsettling sense of being observed. Some guests have described fleeting glimpses of movement along the edges of their vision, only to turn and find the space empty, reinforcing the impression that the spirits of Magnolia Oaks move freely between rooms and through the house. The plantation's exterior grounds also play a significant role in its haunted reputation. Visitors strolling the gardens or walking along tree-lined paths often report seeing apparitions among the foliage, including fleeting glimpses of women in period attire or shadowy figures moving in and out of view. These experiences are frequently accompanied by other phenomena, such as sudden chills, the distant sound of footsteps, or faint whispers carried on the wind. Even the natural environment of the estate seems infused with a sense of history, as if the memories and spirits of those who once lived there are embedded in the very landscape. Cold drafts and sudden temperature shifts are commonly reported by guests. A room that is warm and still one moment may feel icy the next, often coinciding with the appearance of a figure or the sound of a whisper. These sudden changes create a tangible sense of presence, suggesting that unseen forces move through the space. Visitors frequently describe the sensation as if someone or something is passing nearby, invisible yet perceptible through the drop in temperature. These experiences, combined with visual apparitions and auditory phenomena, heighten the overall sense that Magnolia Oaks is more than a historical landmark. It is a site where the past continues to assert itself in the present. Mirrors and reflective surfaces are also linked to paranormal encounters at Magnolia Oaks. Guests have described seeing figures in mirrors that vanish when they turn to look directly. In some cases, multiple apparitions appear in a single reflection, their movements synchronized yet impossible to trace. These experiences create an unsettling feeling that the house contains layers of reality, where the present moment overlaps with echoes of the past. Historical context helps explain the lingering presence of these spirits. Magnolia Oaks, like many antebellum plantations, was home to generations of wealthy families and the staff who maintained the estate. Joy, sorrow, work, and loss all intersected within its walls and grounds, leaving behind emotional residues that some believe manifest as apparitions, whispers, and unexplained phenomena. The women in antebellum dresses may represent the former inhabitants carrying out routines from another time, while shadowy figures near windows and distant whispers could reflect memories of lives shaped by the plantation's complex history. Visitors often describe their experiences at Magnolia Oaks as immersive and emotionally charged. Apparitions gliding through hallways, whispers calling out names, shadowy forms near windows, and sudden chills create an atmosphere where the past is felt as acutely as it is seen. Every creak of the floorboards, every flicker of shadow, and every fleeting whisper seems to reinforce the notion that the mansion is alive with echoes of former lives. Magnolia Oaks Plantation remains a place where history and the supernatural converge. The ghostly women in antebellum dresses, shadowy figures near windows, faint whispers, sudden cold drafts, and reflective anomalies in mirrors all serve as reminders that the past is never truly gone. Guests leave with the impression that they have walked among the echoes of lives once lived, that the plantation holds memories that refuse to fade, and that the spirits of Magnolia Oaks continue to inhabit its halls and grounds. Its haunting presence is a silent but powerful testament to memory, history, and the unseen residents who linger, watching and moving just beyond perception, ensuring that the legacy of the past remains vividly present. Cypress Grove Plantation in Natchez, Mississippi, is a sprawling estate steeped in history and shadowed by tales of the supernatural. Its stately mansion, sprawling grounds, and aged outbuildings offer visitors a glimpse into a time when the plantation bustled with life and labor. Yet the estate's serene appearance masks a darker, lingering presence. Cypress Grove has earned a reputation as one of the most haunted plantations in the region, drawing visitors intrigued by both its historical significance and its paranormal activity. Guests consistently report seeing shadowy figures, experiencing sudden cold drafts, hearing phantom footsteps, and listening to whispers that echo through the halls long after sunset. These eerie encounters have created an atmosphere where the past seems not only remembered but vividly alive. Many visitors first notice the unusual activity upon approaching the main house. Its wide veranda, tall windows, and intricate architectural details present a picture of southern elegance. Yet a sense of unease often accompanies the initial impression. Guests report shadowy figures glimpsed near doorways or moving along hallways, often vanishing when approached. These apparitions are sometimes described as former residents, dressed in period clothing, or as indistinct, dark silhouettes whose presence is felt more than clearly seen. The fleeting nature of these visions heightens the sense of mystery, leaving visitors questioning whether what they saw was real or a trick of the fading light. Inside the mansion, phantom footsteps are frequently reported. Visitors recount hearing the soft, deliberate tread of someone walking along hallways or up and down stairs when no one else is present. These sounds often appear in rhythm, as if replaying a daily routine from decades past. In some cases, guests have followed the sounds only to find empty corridors, the footsteps ceasing as mysteriously as they began. The phenomenon creates a chilling sensation, reinforcing the belief that the estate is still inhabited by unseen presences, moving through the very spaces that were once their daily world. Cold drafts add a tangible dimension to the haunting of Cypress Grove. Many visitors describe sudden drops in temperature, often localized in specific areas such as hallways, near windows, or along staircases. A room that moments before was warm and still may feel icy in an instant, sending shivers down the spine. These drafts are often accompanied by the sense of being watched or followed, contributing to an unsettling feeling that invisible forces are moving among the living. Some guests report that the chills intensify when they encounter other phenomena, such as shadows, whispers, or faint sounds of movement. Whispers are another commonly reported phenomenon at Cypress Grove Plantation. Guests have described hearing voices calling names, fragments of conversation, or soft murmurs coming from empty rooms. The whispers are subtle yet persistent, often appearing when visitors are alone or in quiet corners of the mansion. Some speculate that these voices belong to the spirits of the plantation's former residents, while others believe they may be the lingering echoes of enslaved workers who once labored on the estate. Regardless of their origin, the whispers add an intimate, haunting quality to the visitor experience, as though the plantation itself is attempting to communicate the stories of those who once lived there. The grounds of Cypress Grove are also rich with reported paranormal activity. Guests walking through the gardens or along tree-lined paths have observed shadowy forms moving between trees or near the outbuildings. Some describe seeing figures in period clothing tending to gardens or moving along the edges of the property, only to vanish when approached. The estate's history, marked by the lives of both wealthy owners and the enslaved individuals who worked the land, seems to permeate the very soil, creating an environment where the past continues to manifest in subtle yet undeniable ways. Objects occasionally appear to move on their own within the mansion. Doors may open slightly, chairs shift, or small items appear out of place without explanation. These subtle movements, combined with shadowy figures and phantom footsteps, reinforce the sense that Cypress Grove is not merely a historical site but a living repository of memory and energy. Visitors often report seeing figures near these objects just before or after the movement occurs, suggesting that the spirits may still interact with their former environment in ways perceptible to the living. Mirrors and reflective surfaces have also played a role in the haunting experiences reported at Cypress Grove. Guests have glimpsed shadowy forms or figures in mirrors that vanish when they attempt to confront them directly. These reflections create the impression of multiple layers of reality, where the present moment overlaps with echoes of the past. Shadows may appear synchronized with movement in the room or may act independently, reinforcing the eerie, unpredictable nature of the plantation's paranormal presence. Historical context provides insight into the pervasive activity at Cypress Grove. Like many antebellum plantations, it was home to generations of wealthy families and the enslaved laborers who maintained the estate. The lives of those who lived, worked, and perished on the property left behind emotional and spiritual imprints that some believe continue to resonate. Shadowy figures, phantom footsteps, whispers, and cold drafts may all represent the lingering presence of those who once called Cypress Grove home, carrying with them the weight of memory, loss, and unresolved emotion. For visitors, the experience of Cypress Grove Plantation is immersive and often deeply affecting. The combination of shadowy figures, phantom footsteps, cold drafts, whispers, and subtle object movement creates an atmosphere where the past feels alive. Every flicker of shadow, every echoing whisper, and every sudden chill seems to reinforce the notion that the estate retains the presence of those who walked its halls long ago. Cypress Grove Plantation remains a powerful testament to the convergence of history and the supernatural. Shadowy figures gliding through rooms, phantom footsteps, sudden cold drafts, whispers from empty corridors, and subtle movements of objects all serve as reminders that the past is never truly gone. Visitors leave with a profound sense that they have walked among the echoes of lives once lived, that the plantation's memories are tangible, and that the spirits of Cypress Grove continue to inhabit its halls and grounds. The estate stands as a silent but persistent witness to history, memory, and the unseen presences that linger long after sunset. There you have it, 25 haunted plantations in Mississippi with restless souls. From grand historic mansions to forgotten estates, these plantations are more than historical sites. They are home to spirits who never found peace. Shadowy figures, phantom footsteps, and whispers remind us that some tragedies linger, and some souls never leave the halls they once knew. If tonight's journey through Mississippi's haunted plantations sent chills down your spine, make sure to subscribe, ring the bell, and join us for more explorations of haunted locations, historical mysteries, and the restless spirits that haunt them. Keep your lanterns close, your senses sharp, and your courage strong, because in Mississippi's haunted plantations, the past never truly sleeps, and the souls are always watching. Stay brave, stay curious, and good night.